Hey everyone, and welcome back to History Simplified. Today, we're talking about that time when Italy, the new kid on the European bloc, decided it desperately needed a colony to be part of the cool empire club. It looked at the only piece of pie left on the table, a big sandy slice called Libya, and decided to punch the Ottoman Empire in the face for it. Think of it as the world's worst group project. Britain and France have already done all the easy parts of conquering the globe, and Italy, the latecomer who just finished unifying its own country, shows up demanding a leadership role. The year is 1911. The vibes, awful, yes. We're boiling down complex geopolitics and the declining scramble for Africa into petty high school drama. Is it historically nuanced? Hey, is it fun? Absolutely. Before the inevitable betrayal starts, if you enjoy this highly inaccurate but fun version of history, please hit that like and subscribe button. Seriously, it helps us buy more silly hats for the next video. Alright, grab some popcorn. Things are about to get unnecessarily complicated. So, let's set the scene. It's the turn of the 20th century, and Europe is basically a high-stakes, high-fashion game of risk. And Italy? Italy is losing badly. This is a nation that's only really been a nation since like 1870. Before that, it was just a collection of disgruntled kingdoms and city-states in a geographical boot. Now, finally united, Italy looks around at the popular kids' table and sees Britain and France, and it gets the most severe, earth-shattering case of colonial FOMO, fear of missing out in human history. Britain has everything. It has India, Canada, Australia, South Africa, Egypt, and like a dozen other places it picked up on a whim. France isn't doing the bad either. It's got Indochina, huge swathes of West Africa, and most painfully for Italy, it had just snapped up Algeria, and in 1881, Tunisia. This stung. Italy had Tunisia. It was right across the water from Sicily. It even had a bunch of Italian immigrants living there. Italy thought Tunisia was a gimme, and then France just walked in and took it. It was the geopolitical equivalent of calling shotgun and then watching your friend give the front seat to a total stranger just because they had a bigger army. This humiliation festered. Italy was supposed to be a great power. It was the third Rome, for crying out loud. It had legacy. It had history. What it didn't have was a posto al sole, place in the sun. All the cool kids had one. Germany, also a new nation, had managed to snag chunks of Africa. Even tiny little Belgium had the Congo and, yikes, was making a mess of it. Italy had Eritrea and a piece of Somalia. In the brutal game of imperial top trumps, this was the equivalent of showing up with a participation ribbon. The Italian nationalist press, the politicians, the industrialists, everyone was screaming about it. The national pride was on the line. How could they call themselves the heirs of Caesar if they couldn't even conquer a patch of desert? The Italian government, led by the admittedly pretty shrewd Prime Minister Giovanni Giolitti, wasn't personally desperate for a war. He was a domestic policy guy. He wanted to focus on industry and internal reforms, but the noise from the nationalists was deafening. They were publishing hysterical articles claiming this one specific part of North Africa was the key to all their problems. They weren't just eyeing any random spot. They had a very specific target. They looked across the Mediterranean, past French-held Algeria and Tunisia, past British-held Egypt, and saw this big, empty-looking patch in the middle, the provinces of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica. Today, we call it Libya. Why Libya? 3 reasons. 1. It was there. It was the last piece of North Africa not claimed by another European power. 2. Roman history. Italian nationalists could point at maps and say, look, Caesar was here. This is basically our ancestral backyard. We're just taking it back from the people who have lived there for the last 1,000 years. And 3. The most important reason, it was owned by the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire was, to put it politely, going through some things. Let's do a quick dialogue. Picture a very fancy European ballroom, circa 1905. Italy, wearing a brand new military uniform that's clearly a size too big, nervously adjusting its sash. Greetings, fellow great powers. I, too, am great. France, smugly sips champagne. Itali. How adorable. Did you enjoy my party in Tunisia? We just built the most charming port. So much influence. Italy, Tunisia, but I like Tunisia. I had coupons for a pizzeria there. Britain, not even looking up from a financial paper about the Suez Canal. One must be quicker. Old boy. Property values, you know. Can't just want a country, one must take it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go draw some more arbitrarily straight lines on a map of the Sudan. Germany claps Italy on the back, a little too hard, ya. You must show them your strength. Get some Lebensraum. Or, the Italian version of that, Spazio Vitali, go punch someone weaker. This is the central, absurd joke of the whole situation. Italy's decision to invade Libya wasn't based on a genuine threat. It wasn't about resources. They convinced themselves it was a fertile paradise, but it was mostly sand. It was pure, 100% uncut, weapons-grade peer pressure. The narrator, that's me, has to chime in here. This is, without question, the geopolitical equivalent of showing up late to a massive potluck dinner, finding all the good appetizers are gone, and instead of just grabbing some hummus, you decide to steal the entire catering van, just to prove you could. Italy's logic was flawless. In its own mind, to be a great power, I must act like a great power. And what do great powers do? They steal things from weaker people. Therefore, if I steal Libya, I will become a great power. It's perfectly circular, deeply insecure, and incredibly aggressive logic. And it's the only logic that mattered. So, Italy starts its softening up phase. It starts pouring money into Tripolitania through the Banco di Roma, setting up businesses and buying influence, basically as a pretext to later claim it was protecting its citizens and investments. The nationalist machine goes into overdrive, printing maps showing Libya as a lost Roman province, a golden land of milk, honey, and wheat, just waiting for Italian farmers to show up and civilize it. The stage was set. Italy had picked its target. Now it just needed to find an excuse to start the fight. So, let's talk about this weaker people Italy had in its sights. We need to check in on the Ottoman Empire, and oh dear, going through some things is the understatement of the century. If Italy in 1911 was a nation with a massive inferiority complex, the Ottoman Empire was a sprawling, ancient dynasty having a full-blown, public meltdown of identity crisis. For the last 100 years, the Ottomans had been the designated sick man of Europe. This wasn't just a casual insult, it was a formal diagnosis from the other great powers. The empire was this vast, multi-ethnic, multi-religious patchwork held together by a 600-year-old dynasty, and it was fraying at every single seam. Throughout the 1800s, it had been shedding territory like a dog with anxiety. Greece, gone. Serbia, gone. Romania, gone. Everyone was breaking away, usually with the helpful assistance of Russia or Britain, who would then immediately move in as the new protector. But the real, immediate chaos, the reason Italy was practically vibrating with opportunism, was the event of 1908. The Young Turk Revolution. For 30 years, the empire had been ruled by Sultan Abdul Hamid II. Let's call him Abdul the Paranoid. He was an old-school autocrat. He had suspended the constitution, dissolved the parliament, and ruled by decree from his palace, backed by a terrifying network of secret police. He was trying to hold the empire together with censorship, fear, and a policy of pan-Islamism, which was his last-ditch effort to get all the Muslims in his empire to rally around him instead of, nationalism or liberalism, or any of those other pesky European ideas. It didn't work. By 1908, a secret society of Western-educated, ambitious, and deeply frustrated army officers and intellectuals known as the Committee of Union and Progress, CUP, or just the Young Turks, had enough. They were based in Salonika, now in Greece, and they saw Abdul's paranoid, stagnant rule as the reason the empire was dying. They believed the only way to save it was to force it into the modern age. So, they launched a revolution. They marched their troops toward the capital, Constantinople, Istanbul, and Abdul the Paranoid, seeing that his own army was siding with the rebels, completely folded. He caved. He immediately reinstated the 1876 constitution, brought back parliament, and abolished the secret police. The empire exploded in celebration. For a brief, shining moment, Turks, Greeks, Armenians, Arabs, and Jews were literally hugging in the streets, celebrating their new liberty, equality, and fraternity. It was beautiful. It lasted about 5 minutes, because the instant the central government showed weakness and distraction, everyone on the borders made a move. This is the hungry wolves part. The revolution happened in July 1908. By October, Austria-Hungary, oh, lovely chaos you've got there. You know that territory of Bosnia-Herzegovina we've been temporarily administering for 30 years. Well, it's ours now. We're formally annexing it. This infuriated Serbia, which considered Bosnia to be its backyard, and almost started World War I right then and there. Bulgaria, speaking of independence, that principality status you gave us, we're upgrading. We are now a fully independent kingdom. Deal with it. Crete, and we're unifying with Greece. Woohoo! So the brand new Young Turk government, which was just trying to figure out how to run a parliamenta, debate, was immediately hit with the loss of 3 major territories. It was a national humiliation. Then, to make matters worse, the old guard tried a counter-revolution in 1909. Abdul the Paranoid's supporters rose up to restore his absolute power. The Young Turks had to march on the capital again, crush the rebellion, and this time they were done playing nice. They formally deposed Abdul Hamid II and put his mild-mannered, utterly powerless brother, Mehmed V, on the throne as a puppet sultan. This brings us to 1911. The Ottoman Empire is a constitutional monarchy in name, but it's really a chaotic, unstable military-ish oligarchy run by the deeply factionalized Young Turks. They are not a unified party, they're a mess of competing idealists, hardcore nationalists, and military strongmen, all of whom hate each other. They are broke. Their army is in the middle of a massive, confusing reorganization, and they are staring at an absolute dumpster fire in the Balkans, where Serbia, Bulgaria, and Greece are clearly planning to invade and carve up Macedonia, the last big chunk of Ottoman territory in Europe. The Ottoman government was, to put it mildly, distracted. Let's imagine the Ottoman Cabinet Office in 1911. Young Turk official 1 slams down a stack of papers. Okay, priorities. The Albanians are in open revolt again. The army in Yemen is deserting because we can't pay them. The Greeks in parliament won't vote on the budget. The Serbian press is calling us genocidal tyrants. And my spies say the Bulgarian army is mobilizing near the border. Young Turk official 2, wiping sweat from his brow. Right, we must preserve our homeland in Europe. Thressen, Macedonia are everything. Send the reserves there. What else? Official 1, we got another diplomatic note from Italy. Something about Italian citizens being mistreated in Tripoli? Official 2 waves hand dismissively. Tripoli? You mean Libya? The giant sand province? Who cares? It's sand. It hasn't turned a profit in 500 years. Send them a polite "we'll look into it" letter. It's Italy. What are they going to do? Invade? Now, about this Albanian problem. This is the medicamentary, the grand central joke. Italy was about to launch a full-scale colonial war against the government. That literally kept forgetting that it owned the territory being invaded. The Ottoman leadership was so completely and justifiably terrified of the impending explosion in the Balkans a threat to their existence that this African possession was, at best, an afterthought. It was a distant, unprofitable, tribal-run desert, garrisoned by only a few thousand local troops. The Ottomans didn't even have a proper army there. They couldn't. The British in Egypt and the French in Tunisia wouldn't let them move troops through their territory, and their navy was too pathetic to transport an army by sea. Italy knew this. They knew the house was messy. They knew the owners were upstairs arguing about a gas leak in the attic. The Balkans, and that, they decided, was the perfect moment to sneak in through the basement window and steal the dusty old furniture in the cellar. Libya. So Italy had its target, the big, messy, distracted house of the Ottoman Empire. But you can't just kick in the door. Well, you can, but it's considered terribly rude, and you might get yelled at by the neighbors. And in 1911, the neighbors were everything. This was the concert of Europe, which sounds like a lovely orchestral performance, but was really more like a mafia round table. It was a shaky, backstabbing agreement between the great powers Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia that nobody got to make a big move like starting a war or redrawing a map without everyone else signing off. Why? Because any sudden shift in power might tip the whole continent into the catastrophic, all-out war that everyone was simultaneously preparing for and terrified of. So Italy, being the new guy at the table, couldn't just grab Libya. That would be destabilizing. It would be poor form, no. It had to spend the last 20 years politely sliding metaphorical permission slips across the table to the real bosses, collecting signatures one by one. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the whole thing just gets chef's kiss, cynically brilliant. Italy's diplomatic shopping spree was a masterpiece of Isles Craccio Farfionabi. First, they went to France back in 1902. This was the big one. Italy was still so salty about Tunisia, so they cut a deal. Italy essentially told France, all right, look, we both want North Africa. You really, really want Morocco. We really, really want Libya. How about this? We, Italy, will officially shut up about Morocco. We will support your right to pacify it. In exchange, you just look the other way when we, acquire Libya. France, which desperately wanted to complete its North African collection, basically said, wait, you'll give us your blessing to take Morocco, and all we have to do is not care about a dessert you want. Done. Permission slip number 1, signed by France. Next, Great Britain. Britain was the king of the Mediterranean. Its entire empire depended on the shipping lane that ran from Gibraltar to the Suez Canal, which was the jugular vein connecting it to India. Britain's only question for anything that happened in the Med was, does this mess with my boats? Italy came cap in hand and said, hey, King George, we're thinking of setting up shop in Libya. Britain looked up from its ledger, pictured the map, and realized, wait, if Italy has Libya, it sits between my bases at Malta and Egypt. Is that good or bad? They decided it was fine. Better Italy than Germany anyway. Italy was kind of a friend. And Italy promised so hard that it would never, ever mess with British rights in Egypt. Britain grunted, right, fine, just. Keep the noise down, and don't, under any circumstances, get any funny ideas about my canal. Permission slip number 2, signed by Britain. Then came Russia in 1909. This was the Rakoniji bargain, which sounds like a cheap pasta dish, but was a major geopolitical trade. Italy met the Tsar. Russia's entire foreign policy for 100 years was about one thing, the Turkish Straits, the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles. These two tiny waterways were the only way for Russia's Black Sea Fleet to get to the Mediterranean, and the Ottomans kept them closed to all warships. Russia hated this. So, Italy said, Mr. Tsar, what if we, Italy, supported your quest to liberate the straits for your warships? The Tsar's eyes lit up. And in return, Italy continued, you just support our interest in Libya. Russia, a traditional protector of the Ottomans when it wasn't invading them, agreed instantly. Libya, you want that? Take it. Now, about my boats. Permission slip number 3, signed by Russia. The only awkward part was Italy's own allies. Italy was, technically, in the Triple Alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary. This was a problem, because Germany was the Ottoman Empire's new best friend forever. Germany was building the Ottomans a massive Berlin-Baghdad railway. They were sending military advisors. To reorganize the Ottoman army, Germany was invested, so Italy's position was, to put it mildly, weird. Let's imagine the dialogue. Italy walks into the Triple Alliance clubhouse. Italy, nervously adjusting its collar. Hey, besties. So, good news. I'm finally gonna do it. I'm gonna get a real colony. I'm gonna be a real great power, just like you, Germany. Germany, polishing a spiked helmet, is gut. Strength is everything. Who are we invading? The French. The British. Italy. Oh no, God, no. I'm invading the Ottoman Empire. Germany stops polishing. What? Austria-Hungary just looks confused, but we like the Ottomans. They keep the Balkans quiet. Ish. Kinda. Not really. Germany, Italy. Buddy. France. I am training their army. I am building their railroads. That is my client. You can't invade my client. That's just rude. Italy, but my place in the sun. France said I could. Britain said I could. Russia said I could. I have all the permission slips. Germany and Austria were furious. But what could they do? If they disowned Italy, they'd shatter their own alliance and push Italy right into the arms of France and Britain. So they just stood there, fuming, and said, fine, do it. But we are very disappointed in you. And you'd better make it fast. Don't you dare to stabilize the Balkans. This whole diplomatic house of cards was just about stable when, in July 1911, the final domino fell, the Agadir crisis. France made its big move, sending troops to Fez and formally claiming Morocco. This was the signal. Italy's Prime Minister Giulio, who had been dragging his feet, was now pushed to the brink. The nationalists in Italy went absolutely feral. France got Morocco. They cashed in their chip. It's our turn. It's Libya o'clock. Go now. Giulio realized if he didn't invade right now, the moment would pass. The concert of Europe might change its mind, and his government would collapse. This right here is the narrator's medicamentary, and this is how you get a war. It wasn't a matter of is this legal? It wasn't a matter of is this moral? It wasn't even a question of is this a good idea? The only question was, have we asked all the other important people if they ray cool with us beating up this unimportant person? And the answer, from all the relevant parties, was a resounding, cynical fine, whatever. Just don't mess up our stuff. The permission slips were all signed. The diplomatic groundwork was complete. The great European civilized powers had all agreed to let Italy commit grand larceny. All that was left was the excuse. Italy needed a casus belli, a reason for war. And the one they came up with was one for the history books. So, the stage is set. The great powers have given their sleazy, backroom blessing. The Italian military is mobilized. The Navy is literally steaming circles in the Mediterranean, just waiting for the go code. All Italy needed was an official reason to light the fuse, a casus belli, and on September 26, 1911, they sent one. And sweet Neptune's trident, it was a work of art, a masterpiece of disingenuous, transparently fake diplomatic grievance. It was, quite possibly, the lamest excuse in the history of modern warfare. The ultimatum was delivered to the Ottoman government in Constantinople. It was less of a negotiation and more of a get-out-of-mind-whilst notice. It was a long, flowery, deeply insulting document that can be boiled down to 3 main points. You're a bad landlord. Italy accused the Ottoman Empire of leaving Tripolitania and Cyrenaica in a state of disorder and neglect. This is like a burglar kicking in your door and yelling at you because your carpets are dirty. Italy, a nation that just finished unifying and was dealing with massive poverty and unrest in its own south, was now appointing itself the regional inspector of administrative efficiency. You're mean to our people. This was the big one. Italy claimed that its citizens, the handful of businessmen, bankers, and farmers they had planted there as a pretext, were being obstructed, mistreated, and endangered. They offered basically zero evidence for this. There were no massacres, no riots against Italians. It was the equivalent of sending your cousin to stand in someone else's yard and then declaring war because the owner looked at him funny. You're blocking our civilizing mission. This is the classic, racist, colonial trump card. Italy claimed that it needed to invade Libya for Libya's own good. It was Italy's historic duty to bring progress, civilization, and economic development to these poor, benighted people, the same people who were about to have Italian bombs dropped on their heads. The ultimatum concluded with the most brazen demand of all: to solve this problem, the Ottoman Empire must consent to Italy militarily occupying Tripolitania and Cyrenaica immediately. The document gave the Ottomans a whopping 24 hours to respond, not to negotiate, not to discuss terms, just to say yes, please come invade us. Let's be clear, this was not a negotiation. It was a theatrical performance for the other great powers. It was Italy holding up a piece of paper and shouting, "See, we tried diplomacy. We listed our grievances. It's not our fault they're being so unreasonable as to not let us conquer them. We have followed the rules." Now, let's picture the scene in Constantinople. The Ottoman Grand Vizier, said Pasha, gets this document. He's probably in the middle of a screaming match about Bulgarian troop movements. Ottoman official, running in, out of breath, sir. A note from the Italian embassy. It's urgent. Grand Vizier, not looking up from a map of the Balkans. Italy, again. What is it this time? Are they upset about the price of figs? Just send them a gift basket. I am busy trying to prevent the total collapse of our European territories. Official, sir, they say we're neglecting Libya. Grand Vizier finally looks up. We're what? Official, and we're endangering their citizens. And sir, they demand the right to militarily occupy Tripoli. To restore order. Grand Vizier stares in stunned silence for a full 10 seconds. They're joking. Right? This is a joke. A very, very bad Italian joke. Official, they gave us 24 hours. Sir. Grand Vizier, OCCUPY? Are they insane? They can't occupy our sovereign territory. That's a war. Over what? Did an Italian tourist stub his toe in the marketplace? This is the single most absurd thing I have ever heard. And I have to deal with Albanian rebels every Tuesday. The Ottomans were completely blindsided, not by the ambition they knew Italy had its eye on Libya, but by the sheer, unadulterated nerve of the excuse. They genuinely thought Italy was bluffing, or that this was some crazy diplomatic maneuver to extract concessions. They couldn't believe Italy would actually start a war over this flimsy, see-through nonsense. So, they did what any government does when faced with a ridiculous demand. They tried to call the bluff. They sent back a reply just before the deadline. And this reply is almost as funny as the ultimatum. It was a masterclass in polite diplomatic panic. The Ottoman reply was essentially, wait, what? No. We love Italians. Italians are great. Look, we'll give your businesses anything they want. Special privileges? You got it. Monopolies? Sure. You want to run the post office? Be our guest. We'll even, symbolically, recognize your special interest in the region. We'll do anything, short of, letting you invade our country. Let's talk. Talking is good. But here's the kicker, and the central medicamentary on this whole farce. Italy never even read the reply. By the time the Ottoman note was being delivered to the Italian embassy in Constantinople, the Italian government had already declared war. They didn't care what the answer was. The 24-hour clock was just a countdown to the invasion they had already planned, paid for, and mobilized. The ultimatum was a press release. The negotiation was a sham. This whole process is the most cynical part of 19th century imperialism, dressed up in 20th century language. It's the stop hitting yourself school of geopolitics. Narrator's commentary: just take a second to appreciate the sheer audacity. Step 1. Decide to steal your neighbor's car. Step 2. Spend a month complaining to the other neighbors that his car is too dirty and badly parked. Step 3. Write him a note saying you will be forced to take his car to civilize it unless he gives you the keys in 24 hours. Step 4. Before he can even answer, you're already hot-wiring it, peeling out of his driveway, and shouting "He made me do this." On September 29, 1911, Italy formally declared war on the Ottoman Empire, not for an attack, not for an insult, not for a broken treaty, but because the Ottoman Empire had failed to comply with Italy's demand that it surrender a massive chunk of its own territory. For being neglected, the Italian press, of course, presented this as a glorious, necessary, and righteous act. The fourth shore was being reclaimed. The heirs of Rome were returning to their ancestral lands. It was a noble mission to bring light to the darkness. The nationalistic fervor was so thick you could cut it with a breadstick. The fleet was already on its way. So, war is declared. The fake grievance ultimatum has expired. The Ottoman "let's talk" reply is in the trash. The Italian propaganda machine is screaming about Roman glory, and now, the big guns part of the big guns. No planned strategy swings into action from ports all over southern Italy. The Regia Marina, the Italian Royal Navy, steams south. And you have to understand, this fleet was Italy's pride and joy. This was the national credit card maxed out. They had shiny new battleships, fast cruisers, torpedo boats. This was Italy's way of proving it was a modern power. This fleet wasn't just for fighting, it was for showing off. The main armada, under the command of Admiral Luigi Faravelli, arrives off the coast of Tripoli, the main port and capital of the Ottoman province. It's an overwhelming sight. Massive steel dreadnoughts and pre-dreadnoughts just appear on the horizon. Admiral Faravelli, feeling very pleased with himself, immediately sends another ultimatum, this one just for the city itself. On October 2nd, he basically signals the Ottoman garrison commander, a man named Neshat Bey, "I have so many guns. You have a medieval wall and some rusty cannons. Surrender the city and all your troops now, or I will be forced to reduce this entire place to rubble. You have 24 hours in Tripoli." Neshat Bey is in an impossible position. He has a tiny garrison, maybe 2,000 regular Ottoman troops and a few thousand local Libyan police. He knows he can't fight a naval fleet. He knows he can't win, but he also can't just surrender. You can't hand over a provincial capital just because a guy with a big boat asks you to. It's sovereign territory, so he does the only thing he can. He refuses. He basically sends back a "do your worst, you pirate" message, but then, under the cover of darkness, he does something very smart. He takes his 2,000 Ottoman regulars and quietly evacuates the city, marching them inland to an oasis just outside of town at a place called Azizia. He leaves the local police in charge of the fort, essentially sacrificing them to buy himself time. He knows the real war won't be fought on the beach. Admiral Faravelli gets the no. He is, frankly, shocked at this. Shocked. How dare they not surrender to his superior firepower? Fine. He gave them a chance. On October 3, 1911, he gives the order. The Italian Navy opens fire. And this is the moment of pure, unadulterated imperial theater. You have battleships like the Benedetto Brin and the Re Umberto firing enormous, high-explosive 12-inch shells at, what, exactly? A 16th century fortress, a few small, antiquated Ottoman cannons, mud brick houses. It's the equivalent of using a cruise missile to kill a fly. For 2 straight days, the Navy just blast the waterfront. They level the forts. They blow up the lighthouse. They send shells flying into the city. It's loud, it's terrifying, and it's spectacular overkill. Finally, on October 5th, the shelling stops. The admiral says, okay, they've definitely had enough. Time to take our prize. And this is where the no plan part becomes screamingly obvious. The Italian High Command had a plan for the bombardment. They did not have a coordinated plan for the invasion. The main army, the 20,000-man expeditionary force, was still on transport ships, back in Italy, or somewhere on the water. They weren't there. They had sent the Navy first, genuinely expecting the city to just give up. So, with no army available, who conquers Tripoli? 1,700 sailors, that's it. A landing party of Marines and sailors, led by Captain Umberto Cagni, gets in their little rowboats, storms the beach, and finds the city mostly deserted and on fire. They run to the main fortress, the Red Castle, find it empty, and hoist the Italian tricolor over the ramparts. The Italian press back home gets the telegram, Tripoli captured. Glory to Italy! War is over. Let's check in with the admiral on his flagship. Italian Admiral Faravelli, telescope to his eye. Bellissimo, the flag, it's up. Captain, send a wire to Rome. Tell them the city is ours. The locals are liberated. The war is won, see? I told you this would be over by lunchtime. Well, a very, very late, multi-day lunch. Italian captain, looking through his own binoculars. Excellent, sir. A glorious victory. The sailors are securing the beach. They've captured the beach, sir. And the fort, Admiral, wonderful now. Where are the cheering crowds of Libyans welcoming us with flowers and whatever it is they eat? Here, Captain, scanning. Sir, I see. No flowers. I see. Fire, and ho, sir, you see those low hills, just over there, past the edge of the city. Admiral, yes, what of them? Are those the cheering crowds starting to arrive? Captain, no, sir. That appears to be Neshat Bey and his 2,000 Ottoman troops and quite a lot of Libyan volunteers with rifles, and they are all just watching us. Admiral, watching us. Captain and sir, they're just outside the maximum range of our naval guns. Admiral, that's suboptimal. Well, just tell the sailors to dig in, yes, dig in on the beach. The real army will be here, eventually. And this, right here, is the central, humiliating, immediate failure of the entire war. The narrator has to step in. This is the big guns, no planned strategy in its purest form. Italy spent all its money on the shiny battleships, the shock and awe part. They spent almost zero time thinking about the occupation and governance part. They genuinely, truly believed that once they blasted the coastline and raised the flag, the local Libyan population would just fall in line. They expected to be greeted as liberators from the tyrannical Turks. Instead, they found themselves in possession of exactly one ruined fortress and about 3 square blocks of a terrified city. Their glorious landing force of 1,700 sailors was now a tiny, isolated garrison, surrounded on 3 sides by a growing, furious army of Ottoman Libyans, and on the 4th side by the sea. The grand invasion of Libya, within 48 hours, had turned into a desperate defensive siege. With the Italians on the inside, they weren't conquerors, they were a beachhead, and a very small, very scared one at that. A few days later, on October 11th, the actual invasion force finally arrives, but the element of surprise is gone. The illusion of an easy, glorious war is shattered. The 20,000 men under General Caneva aren't landing as liberators. They're landing as desperate reinforcements for a position that is already pinned down. So, the Italian army, this grand expeditionary force that was supposed to sweep across North Africa like a new Roman legion, has landed. And it is stuck. Utterly, humiliatingly, pants and head stuck. By late October 1911, General Caneva, the man in charge, isn't planning a glorious march inland. He's building trenches. Not in the desert, not in the mountains. He's building trenches around the port cities of Tripoli, Derna, and Tobruk. His army is in a self-imposed prison. They have exactly as much of Libya as their naval guns can protect. The second an Italian patrol pokes its nose outside the city perimeter, it's met with a hail of bullets from Ottoman regulars and Libyan tribal fighters, who are just waiting out there in the dust. This is not the nice stroll the Italian press had promised. This is Gallipoli, for years early, and the Italians are the ones trapped on the beach. Back in Rome, the government is in full-blown panic mode. Prime Minister Giulio is sweating. This was supposed to be his big, popular, easy win. This was supposed to unite the country, boost the economy, and shut the nationalists up. Instead, he's getting telegrams about strategic enclaves, heavy resistance, and requesting more barbed wire. The other great powers, who had all given their sleazy permission slips, are starting to clear their throats. Britain says, thought you said this would be quick. You're not. Destabilizing things, are you, old boy? The nationalists in Italy aren't happy either. They're not seeing parades, they're seeing casualty lists. Giulio needs a victory. He needs a headline. He needs to win, right now, even if he hasn't. So, he does what any politician does when faced with a reality that doesn't match their promises. He decides to change reality. With paperwork On November 5, 1911, barely a month into this disastrously stalled invasion, the Italian government in Rome issues a royal decree. It is a stunning, breathtaking, almost surreal document. It basically says, by the king's authority, the provinces of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica, having been liberated, are hereby placed under the full and entire sovereignty of the Kingdom of Italy. End of decree. That's it. They just annexed it. While their army was huddled behind sandbags, eating cold rations, and getting picked off by snipers. They haven't won a battle. They haven't advanced a mile. They don't control the interior. They don't control the people. They don't control anything. But by God, they have a document that says they do. Let's do a quick dialogue. Picture Prime Minister Giulio as Italy holding a very rushed, very self-congratulatory press conference. International press, Senior Italy, a question. Our reporters in Tripoli say your army is, well, they're besieged by the people you're liberating. They can't leave the city. Italy, fluffing his sash, holding up the decree besieged. Pa, what a silly word. We are not besieged. We are consolidating. Yes. We are strategically consolidating our glorious new province. Press, did you say province? But the Ottoman Empire hasn't surrendered. Their army is still 5 miles away. In fact, they're the ones doing the besieging. Italy, irrelevant. A technicality. We have annexed it. Look, it's a decree. It has a stamp. A very nice stamp. It's official. Therefore, the war is, well, the war is over. Really, we won. Press, confused, murmuring you won, but there's still shooting. A lot of shooting. Italy, that's not a war. That's a police action. Yes, we are simply dealing with a few rowdy and subordinate citizens who happen to be armed and led by the entire Ottoman officer corps. But they are citizens, our new citizens, and we will pacify them with artillery. It will be sorted out by Christmas. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a victory parade to plan. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the narrator's metacomentary. This is the I declare bankruptcy move from the office, but for geopolitics. Italy just stood in the middle of a burning building, which it set on fire, pointed at the flames, and announced, I hereby declare that I am the owner of this building. It's a performative act of pure, distilled arrogance. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't put out the fire. It doesn't make the people inside stop shooting at you. It is, quite literally, just saying words. But Italy genuinely believed that if it said the words loudly enough and got them published in the Times of London, that the facts on the ground would magically change. It's like trying to win a boxing match by having the announcer declare you the winner. While you race still in the locker room, it's not just arrogant, it's profoundly stupid. And it backfired. Spectacularly. First, the diplomatic reaction. The other great powers just stared. Italy. Buddy, you can't do that. This wasn't how the game was played. You're supposed to win the war, then you force the loser to sign a treaty, and then you get the land. That's the rules of civilized conquest. By annexing it mid-fight, Italy had just torn up the rulebook and made itself look like a ridiculous amateur. Second, the Ottoman reaction. The government in Constantinople was furious. Before this, they might have negotiated. They were desperate. They might have leased Libya to Italy or given them special economic control. Anything to make this go away so they could focus on the real threat in the Balkans. But now that Italy had unilaterally annexed sovereign Ottoman territory, it was on. This was a profound, unforgivable insult to national honor. The Young Turks could not surrender now, ever. The only way the war could end was if the Ottomans formally signed away their own land, which was political suicide. Italy had just made peace impossible. Finally, and most importantly, the Libyan reaction. Up to this point, some of the local tribes were on the fence. They didn't love the Ottomans. The Turks were their landlords, after all. But this decree, this removed all ambiguity. This wasn't a change of management. This wasn't the Turk being replaced by the Italian. This was a total, permanent, Christian, European conquest. The call for jihad, holy war, against the infidel invaders became universal. This decree was the single greatest recruiting tool the Ottoman Libyan resistance could have dreamed of. It united everyone against Italy. So, Italy's mission accomplished moment, 5 minutes into the war, was a catastrophic own goal. It trapped them. They had won a war on paper that they were now guaranteed to lose in the sand. They had claimed a prize they couldn't hold, and in doing so, had ensured that the actual war would be 10 times bloodier, more expensive, and more humiliating than they ever imagined. So, Italy has its shiny new annexation decree. The king in Rome has signed a piece of paper that says Libya is Italy. The government has held its victory parade, the newspapers have printed the glorious headlines, and the nationalists are all congratulating themselves on their new fourth shore. There is just one tiny, insignificant, microscopic little problem with this entire narrative. Italy forgot to tell the Libyans. The Italian High Command, in its infinite, hubristic, and deeply racist wisdom, had operated on one single, fundamentally flawed assumption that the Arabs and Berbers of Libya would thank them. They truly, genuinely believed this. They thought the Ottomans are their rulers, their landlords. They must hate them. We, the civilized, modern Europeans, will show up, kick the lazy Turk out, and the locals will greet us as liberators. They will hand us flowers, open the markets, and happily start learning Italian. Spoiler alert, they were not handed flowers, unless you count the flowers of the desert, which is what I'm now metaphorically calling the thousands of muzzle flashes aimed directly at their heads. What Italy failed to understand is that while, yes, the Libyans and the Ottomans had a very complicated relationship, landlords, taxes, etc., they were absolutely 100% united by two very simple, very powerful facts. 1. They were, by and large, Muslims. And 2. The Italians were, very obviously, Christian European invaders who had shown up, started shelling civilians, and then unilaterally declared that they owned the entire country forever. Italy's annexation decree from Section 6. That was the single dumbest tactical move they could have made. Before that, maybe some tribes were on the fence. But after that, the deal was sealed. This wasn't a change of management. This was a crusade. The call for jihad, or holy war, against the infidel invaders was electric. The powerful Senussi order, a religious and social movement that commanded the absolute loyalty of the tribes in Cyrenaica, the eastern half of Libya, declared total war. Suddenly, Italy wasn't fighting a few thousand demoralized Ottoman soldiers. It was fighting everyone. And this brings us to the real surprise. The Ottoman government in Constantinople knew it couldn't send an army. The Regia Marina owned the sea, and the British in Egypt and the French in Tunisia had neutrally wink-wink sealed the land borders. So, the Young Turks, the new bosses in the Ottoman capital, did something brilliant. They couldn't send an army. So they sent their team. They sent their best, their brightest, their most charismatic, and their most fanatically patriotic officers to go native and lead the resistance. And who was on this jihadi team? Oh, just a handful of men who would go on to define the 20th century. The ringleader was Enver Bey, soon to be Enver Pasha, the most dashing, ambitious, and frankly reckless of all the Young Turks. And with him, a sharp, brooding, intense 30-year-old officer named Major Mustafa Kemal. Yes, that Mustafa Kemal. The man who would one day be known as Ataturk, the literal father of the Turks. But right now, in 1911, he's a pissed-off patriot. So he, Enver, and a few others do the full mission, impossible routine. They shave their mustaches or grow beards, put on local robes, and buy fake passports. Kemal travels disguised as a journalist for a fictitious newspaper. Enver pretends to be a doctor. They take a steamer ship to Alexandria in British-controlled Egypt, quietly bribe a ton of Egyptian officials who are all too happy to help a fellow Muslim country fight a European empire, and then they ride camels for days across the western desert, dodging British patrols to slip into Libya. This is the desert resistance surprise. It's not just angry tribesmen with old guns, which is what the Italians expected. It's a fusion. It's a perfect, lethal hybrid. It's the professional, modern military doctrine of the best Ottoman officers on earth, merging with the Libyans' perfect, innate knowledge of the terrain, their incredible toughness, their lifetime of experience in desert survival, and their massive numbers. Enver Pasha takes over in Cyrenaica with the Senussi. Mustafa Kemal and others take over in Tripolitania, and they don't just lead, they organize. They create a command structure. They teach the tribal fighters how to build modern trench systems, how to use captured Italian artillery, how to aim their rifles, and most importantly, how to conduct disciplined, coordinated hit-and-run attacks. The Italians, stuck on the beach, get their first taste of this on October 23, 1911. At the Battle of Cyrenaica, just outside Tripoli, the Italians got cocky. Let's go for a patrol. Show the flag. Pacify the locals. A few battalions of Bersaglieri, the elite Italian infantry, march out of their perimeter and into the Cyrenaica oasis. And the Ottoman and Libyan force, under the new command, just waits. They let the Italians walk right into the village. And then snap! The trap closes. From all sides, thousands of fighters open up. It's a perfectly coordinated ambush. The Italian patrol isn't just attacked, it's disintegrated. It's a brutal, shocking, horrifying rout. The Italians panic, break, and flee in terror back to the city walls, leaving hundreds of dead behind. Let's check in on the Italian general, stuck in his Tripoli bunker. Italian General Caneva, what? What do you mean they were organized? The press release said they were disorganized rabble. The desert voice by Mustafa Kemal, a voice on the wind surprise. We've read the same military textbooks you have, and unlike your soldiers, we're not wearing heavy wool uniforms and giant, feathered helmets that make us perfect sniper targets in 100-degree heat. General Caneva, but, we annexed you. You're ours. We have the paperwork. This is just a police action. The desert, that's adorable. Hey, see that patrol you just sent out to pacify the oasis? Now you don't. This is the metacomentary, the central joke. This is the precise moment the Italian leadership learned the fundamental difference between invasion and conquest. You can invade a beach. You can invade a port. You cannot, it turns out, conquer an entire population that has collectively decided you are a disease. Italy thought it was fighting a 19th century colonial war. Show up, fire the big naval guns. The natives cower, the ruler signs a treaty, you raise the flag, done. They weren't, they had. Completely by accident, walked right into the 20th century's signature dish, a brutal, bloody, nationalistic, asymmetric guerrilla war of attrition. The easy war was over before it had even begun. The stroll to Tripoli was now a desperate, humiliating, and very, very hot siege. And the Italians were the ones on the inside. So, the glorious, swift, over-lunchtime war, which was then definitely won by ICE, has just ground to a screaming halt. The Battle of Cyrenaica was a cold, hard, tactical slap in the face. It proved to the Italians that the enemy wasn't just rabble. The enemy was organized, motivated, lethal, and knew the neighborhood. And the Italian army, supposedly the modern, civilized, superior force, they were terrified. This is the stuck-in-the-sand phase, and it is profoundly humiliating. General Caneva, the man in charge, looks at the casualty reports from Cyrenaica, looks at the endless, shimmering, sniper-filled desert horizon, and makes a decision, a very, very un-Roman decision. He's not going to conquer, he's not going to advance, he is going to dig. In one of the most embarrassing reversals in modern colonial history, the mighty Italian expeditionary force, which had swelled to nearly 100,000 men, by early 1912 stopped being an army of conquest and became an army of occupation, and not even occupation of a country. They became the occupiers of 3 beaches, Tripoli, Tobruk, and Derna. That's it. The grand fourth shore of Italy, this vast new province, was, in reality, 3 isolated coastal cities surrounded by an ocean of sand and hate. The Italians built what was mockingly called the Tripoli box. They poured concrete. They built forts. They strung thousands of miles of barbed wire. They dug intricate, complex, European-style trench systems. The only problem, they were facing the wrong way. They were built not to defend Italy from an invader, but to defend the invaders from the local population. The great, conquering army was now living in a self-imposed prison, a giant, sandy POW camp where they were their own guards. And life in the box was miserable. It was hot. No, not just warm. It was an oppressive, soul-crushing, 110-degree heat that these soldiers from the cool mountains of Piedmont were not built for. Their heavy, dark wool uniforms were a joke. Disease was everywhere. Cholera, dysentery, typhus. These invisible enemies were taking out more Italian soldiers than the Ottoman and Libyan bullets were. And then there was the boredom, endless, mind-numbing boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer, pants-wetting terror, because the enemy didn't play fair. They didn't line up for a nice, clean 19th century battle. Mustafa Kemal and Enver Pasha were masters of the new war. They, and their Libyan allies, were ghosts. They'd mortar the Italian trenches at 3 a.m. just to make sure no one got any sleep. A patrol would go out to check the barbed wire, and poof, a single sniper shot from 800 yards away, and another Italian soldier is dead. A supply convoy would try to move between the forts, and suddenly a dozen tribal horsemen would appear over a dune, throw a bomb, and vanish back into the shimmering heat. The Italians were fighting an enemy they couldn't see, in a country they didn't understand, for a victory they had supposedly already won. This is when the mood back in Rome starts to get tense. The government, led by Giulio, is in an impossible position. Let's listen in on a hypothetical progress report call between Rome and Tripoli. Giulio, Prime Minister, in his plush Rome office. General Caneva. Good morning. Just checking in. reading the papers, lovely headlines about the pacification of our fourth shore. So, tell me, how pacified is it? Are we done? General Caneva in a concrete bunker, sweating, gunfire in the background, wipes face with a rag. Senior Primo Ministro, good morning. Yes, pacification is progressing tremendously. We have fully pacified the Tripoli post office and the main square. The main square is very secure, so pacified. We've also built a fence, a very large fence. Giulio, a long, cold pause. A fence. General, we sent 100,000 men, the entire Regia Marina, and half the national budget to build a fence. Caneva, it is a strategic perimeter, sir, for consolidation to protect our new, loyal citizens from the other, less loyal citizens who are just outside the fence. With -- rifles. And artillery. Sir, the desert, it's just full of people. It's very inconvenient. Giulio, I don't care about the fence. General, when are you marching? When do you take the interior? The press is starting to ask why our glorious victory requires more troops and more money every week. I'm telling them it's a police action. Caneva, a mortar shell lands nearby, shaking the bunker. Sir, with all due respect, if this is a police action, then our citizens are armed with 75mm Krupp field guns. We cannot march inland. There is no inland. There is only sand and death. We are stuck, sir. We are stuck in the sand, and that is the medicamentary. This is the moment the propaganda bubble bursts. The Italian government, and more importantly the Italian people, are forced to confront the humiliating truth. This is not a war, it's a quagmire. It's their very own Vietnam, 50 years early, in the desert. The cost is astronomical. This was supposed to be a cheap war. Italy was a new, fragile economy. It didn't have the money for a long, grinding occupation. But now, they're trapped by the sunk cost fallacy. They've already declared victory. They've already annexed it. They can't leave now. That would be the most profound national humiliation imaginable. It would mean the nationalists were right to call the government weak. It would mean the deaths of those first few thousand soldiers were for nothing. So they can't leave. But they can't win. Every day, more money is burned. Every day, more ships sail from Naples loaded with ammunition, barbed wire, and fresh-faced young conscripts who have no idea what they're sailing into. And every week, the ships come back, this time loaded with coffins and men broken by cholera. The Italian high command, in their concrete bunkers, finally realized the truth. They cannot win this war in Africa. The Ottoman and Libyan resistance is too strong, the terrain is too vast, and their own army is too road-bound and conventional. The enemy is a fish, and the desert is their ocean. And the Italian army is, well, it's a very expensive, very shiny boat, sitting uselessly on the shore. If you can't beat the enemy in their house, you're going to have to find a way to make them leave their house. The war had to change. The stalemate was unbearable. Italy had to find a new way to hurt the Ottoman Empire, a way to punch them somewhere else, somewhere that really mattered. The stalemate is total. The Italian army is bored, it's sick, and it's getting picked off daily by an enemy it can't see. The high command in their concrete bunkers are tearing their hair out. They are spending millions of lira every week to pacify a population that is, in fact, actively besieging them. They need an edge. They need a gimmick. They need something. And then some bright, forward-thinking staff officer, probably Captain Carlo Piazza or Captain Riccardo Moiso, looks at the weirdest piece of equipment they packed. Sitting in a crate on the Tripoli docks, they have a few aeroplanes. Now, you have to understand what an airplane was in 1911. This is not a fighter jet. This is not a strategic bomber. This is a bicycle with wings. It's a contraption of wood, canvas, and piano wire, held together with glue and optimism. The engine sounds like a very angry lawnmower and has a nasty habit of just stopping for no reason. These things, the Blériaci, the Neoport, the Etrecht were brand new, experimental, rich man's toys. They were 8 years, 8. Post-Wright brothers, they were for air shows, for delivering the mail badly, for impressing a date. They were not machines of war, but the Italians were desperate, and desperation is the mother of all terrible, brilliant ideas. Some general, probably Caneva, is staring at a map. General Caneva, I know they're out there, Kamal and his ghosts, but where? My patrols get annihilated. My cavalry can't find them. It's just sand. How am I supposed to fight an enemy I can't find? Captain Piazza, cocky, mustachioed aviator, taps the general on the shoulder. Senior General, what if you could see from above? General Caneva looks confused from above. What, are you going to get me a very, very tall ladder? Piazza, no, General, I'm going to take the aeroplano. General Caneva, the toy, the canvas kite. Captain, are you insane? You'll be killed. The engine will stop. The wind will smash you. A strong bird will take you out. Piazza, yes, probably, but what if it doesn't? What if I can fly over their camp and just look? And so, on October 23, 1911, some sources say the 22nd, but let's not quibble. Captain Carlo Piazza climbs into his Bleriot-G monoplane. This is it. The first time in human history an airplane is being flown in an active war zone. For a military purpose. There is no doctrine for this. There are no rules. He has no parachute. He has no radio. He has no machine gun. He has his eyeballs. His mission, go, see, stuff. He cranks the engine, the tiny propeller roars, and this rickety, absurd, glorious machine lurches down a dusty field and actually climbs into the bright Libyan sky. He flies out of the Italian box, over the no man's land, and into history, down below, in the oasis at Azizia. Let's imagine Mustafa Kemal and his staff are planning their next ambush. Mustafa Kemal, pointing at a map right, will hit their supply line here at dawn. The cavalry will draw them out, and the men in the wadi will. Ottoman soldier stops, looks up, shielding his eyes. Sir, do you hear that? That buzzing sound? Like a 1,000 angry bees. Everyone looks up, and they see it. And suddenly, the entire Ottoman Libyan camp erupts in a furious, panicked, and completely useless volley of rifle fire. They are shooting Mauser rifles at a target moving 60 miles an hour. Half a mile in the air, the bullets, of course, all fall harmlessly back to earth. Up in the cockpit, Captain Piazza is having the single greatest aha moment of the 21st century. He's being shot at, which is terrifying, but he's also looking, and he can see everything. He sees the whole camp. He sees where the Ottoman tents are. He sees where the Libyan tribal camps are. He sees the artillery park. He sees the supply depot. He sees the cavalry's horse lines. He sees the layout of their trenches. He sees the paths they use to move troops. He has, in one 60-minute flight, gathered more accurate, actionable intelligence than General Caneva's entire 100,000-man army had gathered in a month. He turns his little plane around, dodging the pointless puffs of rifle smoke, and flies back to the Italian lines, landing with a bounce. He probably has to sit there for a second, just processing what just happened. Then he runs to the general's bunker. Sir, I found them. I found all of them. They're at Azizia, just like we thought, but their camp is here, their ammo is here, and they have 6 guns, not 2, and their trenches face this way. This is the narrator's meta commentary, and boom. Just like that, on a dusty Tuesday in Libya, the entire nature of warfare has changed forever. This is the birth of air power. It wasn't born in a blaze of glory with dogfights and aces. It was born as a nerdy, sneaky, voyeuristic intelligence tool. It was born from pure, unadulterated desperation. The Italians were so hopelessly stuck on the ground that they were forced to take to the air just to figure out where the hell the enemy was. Every military textbook on cavalry reconnaissance, on scouting, on spies, obsolete. Wiped out. All because one Italian guy in a glorified kite went, I wonder what's over that hill. Of course, the high command was stunned. They now had a god's eye view. This was a superpower, but it immediately led to the next logical and far more terrifying question. The generals look at the new, detailed maps. This is wonderful, Captain. We can see them, but seeing them and hitting them are two very different things. It's a shame, isn't it? That while you're up there, you can't, do something, like drop something on their heads. And it turns out, they could. That shame you can't drop something line from the generals. That wasn't a sad, rhetorical question. That was homework, and one man, a dashing pilot named Second Lieutenant Giulio Gavotti, decided to be the first one to turn it in. So, let's set the scene. It's November 1st, 1911. We are 9 days past the first ever reconnaissance flight by Captain Piazza. 9 days. That's how fast this is moving. Gavotti, our new hero, is flying a different kind of plane. A Taube monoplane, which was nicknamed the Dove, a beautiful, bird-like, elegant, killing machine, as it turns out. He takes off from the dusty field at Tripoli. His official mission is, once again, go see stuff. But in his lap, he has a small leather pouch. And in that pouch, he has for Selfies grenades. Now, let's be very clear about what a bomb was in 1911. This is not a 500 pounds, fin-stabilized, aerodynamic electric weapon of death. A Selfies grenade was a little metal ball, about the size of a large grapefruit, packed with picric acid. It had an impact fuse, meaning it was supposed to explode when it hit something hard. It was, for all intents and purposes, a hand grenade. Gavotti flies his dove out over the oasis of Ain Zara. Down below, the Ottoman and Libyan troops are, by now, just getting used to the sky wizard. They see it, they curse it, they waste a few bullets shooting at it. And they try to hide their supplies under blankets, which doesn't work. They assume it's just that annoying pest, Piazza, back to spy on them again. But up in the cockpit, Gavotti is making history. He's steering this rickety, shuddering plane of canvas and wood with one hand, and maybe his knees. With his other hand, he reaches into the leather pouch. He pulls out one of the grapefruit-sized bombs. He does whatever one does to arm a 1911 impact grenade. He looks down. He sees the enemy camp tents, soldiers, horses about 600 feet below him. He leans over the side of his open cockpit, and he drops it. He just lets it go. He literally chucks a hand grenade out of an airplane. He does this 3 more times. For grenades, the entire bomb load. Down below, absolute, unadulterated chaos. Imagine you're an Ottoman soldier. You've seen the buzzing Sky Eagle. It's annoying, but it's just looking. Today, the buzzing Sky Eagle shows up, and then the ground next to your tent explodes. And then it explodes again. This isn't warfare. This is blasphemy. This is an angry sky god smiting you. The physical damage was minimal. It's for hand grenades. They probably didn't even kill anyone. Maybe it scared a few horses. But the psychological damage, oh my god. It was an atom bomb. The troops scattered, screaming. They had no defense. There was no duck and cover. The sky itself was now trying to kill them. Gavotti, his pouch empty, turns his plane and flies back to base, probably with the biggest, most insane grin on his face in all of history. He lands, strolls up to the general's bunker. Sir, reconnaissance complete. Also, I appear to have invented aerial bombing. My apologies. The news flashes across the world, and the world freaks out, specifically the Ottomans. They immediately lodge a formal, high-priority, screaming protest with the other great powers. This was not civilized. This was not warfare. This was monstrous. Let's imagine the Ottoman ambassador bursting into The Hague, where all the rules of war are kept. Ottoman ambassador slams doors open, turban askew. Hear ye, the Italians are cheating. They are literally cheating. Britain puts down his teacup. Good heavens, cheating. How so? Are they using improperly shaped bayonets? Germany, looking very interested, taking notes. Go on. What is this? Cheating Ottoman ambassador. They're throwing bombs from the sky, from their little flying toys. You can't do that. It's barbaric. It's against the rules. Britain adjusts monocle bombs from the sky. He's right. That does sound rather unsporting. It's not cricket. One is supposed to shoot a chap from the ground where he can shoot back. This above nonsense. It's just rude. Ottoman ambassador, see. The 1899 Hague Convention. Declaration 1. It explicitly prohibits the discharge of projectiles and explosives from balloons or by other new methods of a similar nature. Their aeroplane is a new method. This is illegal. Stop them. And this, ladies and gentlemen, this right here is my favorite part of the entire war. This is the narrator's metacomentary, because Italy had an answer. And it is the most beautiful piece of, pedantic, rules lawyering nonsense in military history. The Italian government wrote back a very polite, very smug note. It basically said, we have reviewed the 1899 Hague Convention, and you are quite correct. It does forbid dropping bombs from balloons and other new methods of a similar nature, but you see, a balloon is lighter than air. Our aeroplane, on the other hand, is heavier than air. Therefore, it is not of a similar nature. In fact, it is the precise opposite of a balloon. Thus, this rule does not apply. We are, completely legal. Good day. This is flawless logic. This is the Air Bud defense. The rule book doesn't say a dog can't play basketball. And the world just accepted it. The loophole was valid. The protests were dismissed. And with that one pedantic, cynical little note, the floodgates of 20th century warfare were blown clean off their hinges. Giulio Gavotti, with his For Grapefruits of Death, had just invented strategic bombing, and the lawyers in Rome had just legalized it. The first, adorable, tiny little air raid was over, and every other military attaché in Europe, especially the German one, was now writing frantic cables home. They weren't just writing Italy has airplanes, they were writing Italy is dropping bombs. And it works. We need to get all the bombs and all the aeroplanes. So, the Italians have invented aerial bombing, and they've invented the Air Bud legal defense for it. The Ottoman protests are dismissed, and the world's military attaches are all scribbling, note to self, by all the airplanes and all the bombs. But here's the funny part. The bombing, at this stage, was kind of terrible. I mean, really, think about it. Giulio Gavotti, our plucky air bomber, was chucking For Grapefruit-sized grenades out of an open cockpit. As we said, the psychological terror was immense. The actual tactical damage, minimal. He probably scared some horses and maybe blew up a pot of coffee. You are not going to win a war for hand grenades at a time. The real, immediate, game-changing revolution wasn't the bombing. It was the spying. It was Captain Piazza's first flight. The I can see you moment. That's what changed the tactical map. But even that had a problem. Piazza would land his rickety plane, run to the general's bunker, and say, "Sir, I saw it. Their ammo dump is behind the big rock." And the general would say, "Fantastic. Which big rock, Captain? Show me on this 20-year-old inaccurate map." It was still second-hand information. It was still just a report. The generals needed something better. They needed receipts. And this is where the other high-tech 1911 toy comes into play, the camera. Some genius, probably Captain Piazza again, who was just on an absolute roll that week, gets another bright idea. He's already flown the plane. He's already dodged the bullets. What if he took a picture? Now, again, let's calibrate our expectations. A camera in 1911 was not your iPhone. It was a bulky, wooden and brass box. It weighed a ton. It used glass plate negatives. You didn't just point and shoot. You had to manually set the aperture, the shutter speed, wrestle with the focus, and then physically change the plate for every single shot. Now, imagine doing all of that in an open cockpit, 3,000 feet in the air, in a vibrating, bucking machine made of canvas and glue, while flying the plane. Oh, and people are shooting at you. This is not a job, it's an extreme sport. But these pilots, they were cowboys. They were the test pilots of their day. So, of course, they did it. Captain Piazza or one of his equally insane colleagues stuffs a giant camera into his lap, takes off, and flies back out over the Ottoman lines. He gets his plane stable-ish. He yanks the control stick between his knees. He lets go of flying the plane. He picks up this monster of a camera, leans over the side of the cockpit, aims it at the ground, and click. He takes the first worst selfie in human history. He probably takes a few more. Click. The camp. Click. The trenches. Click. The artillery park. Then he shoves the camera back down, grabs the stick, and flies home. He lands, rushes the glass plates to the brand new field developing lab, which is probably just another tent full of chemicals, and he waits. And what comes out of that chemical bath? Stops time. Let's go back to the bunker. Italian General Caneva, staring at the glowing, wet glass plate, holding it up to the lantern. His jaw is on the floor. Captain, what? What is this? It's perfect. I can see everything. Pilot smug, smoking a cigarette. It's a photograph, General, from 3,000 feet. As you can see, their main ammo dump is not by the big rock. It is right here, covered by a piece of canvas. See, you can count the crates. And there are many artillery pieces. It's four, sir. And 2 of them are pointed the wrong way. General, his hands are shaking. I can count the tents. I can see the latrine ditch. I know exactly where their officers are sleeping. This is sorcery. Pilot, it's intelligence, sir. Real, perfect, undeniable intelligence. They cannot hide. They cannot lie. They cannot move a single machine gun without us knowing. General starts laughing, a wild, slightly unhinged laugh. Oh, this is beautiful. It's not war. It's cheating. It's the most glorious cheating I have ever seen. Get me the artillery commander. Get me every artillery commander. We are going to re-educate that oasis from a very long distance. And that is the birth of modern aerial reconnaissance. All at once, the desert's greatest advantage: it's trackless, featureless. Hidey anything nature was gone. The Ottoman Libyan ghosts were no longer ghosts. They were just Guys standing in a field with a big "Kick Me" sign on their backs that only the Italian pilots could see. The advantage was total, but that was only half of its power. The military value was obvious, but the propaganda value, the propaganda value was priceless. Remember, back home in Rome, we annexed it. Party is starting to sour. The war is not over by Christmas. It's dragging. It's costing a fortune. The socialists are protesting the imperialist adventure. The casualty lists are getting longer. The press is starting to ask awkward questions, like, if we won, why are we still fighting? The Giulio government is desperate for a good headline. And then these photos land on his desk. He doesn't just see an ammo dump. He sees proof. Within days, these aerial photographs are not in a top-secret military bunker. They are on the front page of La Tribuna and Corriere della Sera. The Italian public, for the first time in history, is seeing its war from the air. And this, folks, is the medicomentary. This is the invention of the mission accomplished photo op. It was spin, weaponized. The government could now prove it was winning. Look, the headline screamed, "See our brave aviators soaring like eagles over the defeated enemy." The photos showed Italian dominance. They showed Italian technology. They showed activity. They showed an enemy camp, photographed as easily as a tourist taking a picture of the Colosseum. What did the photos not show? They didn't show that the Italian army was still hopelessly trapped in its barbed wire box. They didn't show the 100,000 men going mad from heat, boredom, and cholera. They didn't show the actual strategic stalemate. They just showed a very cool picture from a very high place. The war selfie wasn't just intelligence. It was the ultimate PR tool. It was a way to provide objective photographic proof that lied about the truth of the war. The pilots, these new gods of the sky, weren't just spies and bombers. They were now the government's most effective and glamorous public relations agents. They were making a humiliating quagmire look like a futuristic victory. But while the army was stuck in the sand and the pilots were up in the air, there was one more piece of the Italian military: the Regia Marina, the massive, shiny, expensive navy. And they were getting bored. They had blasted Tripoli, and now they were just sitting there floating. And a bored navy in an expensive war is a problem. The admirals were itching to do something, and they were about to take this little colonial war and turn it global. So, let's do a quick recap of the war as it stands in early 1912. The Italian army, 100,000 strong, stuck, hopelessly, humiliatingly stuck. They are prisoners in their own Tripoli box, building fences, dying of cholera, and getting harassed by an enemy they can't beat, a strategic and financial disaster. The Italian Air Force, about 8 to 10 guys in kites, having a fantastic time. They are the belle of the ball. They've invented aerial reconnaissance and strategic bombing. They're providing amazing propaganda photos for the newspapers back home, and they are, for the most part, completely untouchable. But they aren't winning the war, they're just making the stalemate look cooler. The Ottoman Libyan resistance, led by rock stars, winning by not losing. They own 99% of the country. They have a perfect, sustainable guerrilla strategy. Their morale is high. They are fighting a holy war on their home turf. They can do this forever. This equation is bad. It's a quagmire. And this is when the third and most powerful piece of the Italian military puzzle starts tapping its fingers impatiently: the Regia Marina, the Royal Navy. You see, the admirals had the easiest job in the first few weeks. They got to play battleship with the Tripoli forts, which was fun. They got to ferry the army across, which was a job. But now they are on the most boring mission imaginable: the blockade. And this blockade, this naval chokehold, was total. It was absolute. It was the single, solitary part of the Italian war plan that was 100% successful. The Italian Navy was new, shiny, and powerful. The Ottoman Navy was, well, it was a collection of old, rusty, floating historical exhibits. Most of them were too scared or too broken to even leave the Dardanelles. This wasn't a fair fight. This wasn't a fight at all. Italy owned the Mediterranean Sea from day one. Italian battleships and cruisers formed an iron chain from Sicily down to Tripoli. Nothing got through. Nothing. No Ottoman transport ships. No freighters full of guns. No secret supply boats. The Ottoman government in Constantinople was completely and surgically severed from its own province. This is why they had to send Mustafa Kemal and Enver Pasha in disguise before the war even started. They knew, with absolute certainty, that the Second War was declared. That sea lane would cease to exist. The Regia Marina was so dominant, so bored, they even went looking for a fight in other oceans, just for something to do. They sent a squadron of ships all the way down through the British-controlled Suez Canal. Britain, in its infinite neutrality, just waved them through into the Red Sea. Why? Because they heard a rumor that the Ottomans had, like, 7 ancient gunboats stationed down there to help fight a different rebellion in Yemen, because the Ottomans were always fighting a rebellion in Yemen. The Italian cruisers found them at the Battle of Confuta Bay. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The Italians sank the entire Ottoman Red Sea flotilla without taking a single hit. They just erased them. This brings us to our personified dialogue. Picture the Regia Marina as a giant, muscular, beautifully dressed bouncer standing outside the club Libya. Regia Marina, polishing a 12-inch naval gun, admiring its reflection. Evening. Ottoman Empire. Sorry. Can't let you in. You're not on the list. Ottoman Empire, holding a small crate of 1887-era Mauser rifles. But this is my club. I own this club. My army is, well, they're in there. They need these rifles. Regia Marina chuckles, a deep, rumbling sound. Oh, that's adorable. Your club. So cute. Look, here's the deal. This water is my water, and that water over there in the Red Sea, that's also my water now. I just sank your little rowboats, so you can't come in. You can't call. You can't send a postcard. You are cut off. Ottoman Empire. This isn't outrage. This is against international law. Regia Marina. No, actually, it's called a blockade. It's the most classic legal form of warfare there is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go. Just float. Menacingly, Toodles. This is the central, absurd irony of the war. This is the meta commentary. Italy was winning the naval war so hard, it didn't matter. A blockade is only a winning move if the thing you are blockading needs the sea to survive. And the Ottoman Libyan resistance didn't. Mustafa Kemal wasn't waiting on a shipment of pasta from Naples. The Libyan tribesmen didn't need Italian machine gun parts. The resistance was being supplied, quietly, secretly, and illegally, overland, through Egypt. The British, who officially condemned this, were also officially incapable of policing their entire 500-mile desert border. So, smugglers, tribes, and sympathetic Egyptian officers were just walking guns, food, and ammunition right into Libya, week after week. So, the Italian admirals are sitting on their giant billion-lira battleships. They are floating. They are bored. They are running the most perfect, most dominant, most useless blockade in history. And their army is still stuck in the sand. This is an intolerable situation for a proud, new, fascist-in-training navy. They're all dressed up with nowhere to go. Their overwhelming, total, and complete naval superiority was achieving nothing. It wasn't ending the war. It wasn't forcing the Ottomans to the table. It was just costing money. And this is when a new, very dangerous thought enters the Italian Admiralty. The stalemate is in Africa. We cannot win in Africa. Our strength is the sea. We are blockading Libya, and it's not working. So, why are we only blockading Libya? The war, they decided, was too small. The quagmire was too localized. If they couldn't win the war in Libya, they would just have to change the war. They would have to use their great, big, beautiful, bored navy to punch the Ottoman Empire somewhere it actually hurt. Somewhere far, far away from the Libyan desert. Somewhere much closer to home. The admirals unfurl their maps. They look past Libya, past Crete, past Greece. They look at the Aegean Sea. They look at the coast of Lebanon, and they look, with greedy, reckless eyes, at the grand prize itself, the Dardanelles, the gateway to the Ottoman capital. The stalemate was over. Italy was about to take this tiny colonial war and make it everyone's problem. So, let's take stock, shall we? It's early 1912. The Italian army is trapped in its beach prison, dying of cholera and boredom. The Italian Air Force, while very glamorous and futuristic, is essentially a very expensive "I'm not touching you" prank, pointing out targets the army can't reach and dropping bombs the size of oranges. The Regia Marina is running the most effective, most dominant, most pointless blockade in human history, because the enemy is getting all their supplies overland through Egypt. This is a problem. Back in Rome, Prime Minister Giulio is not a happy man. This war was supposed to be his gimme, his easy button, his glorious, cheap, flag-waving triumph that would shut the nationalists up and make Italy look like a great power. Instead, it's a quagmire. It's a mess. It's a financial hemorrhage. The quick, 6-week war is now grinding into its 5th, then 6th, then 7th month. The casualty lists are getting longer. filled with names of young men killed not by glorious battle, but by dysentery. The Socialist Party back home is holding massive, angry, anti-war protests, screaming that the government is wasting the blood of the working class to steal a useless pile of sand. And the great powers, the other mafia dons of Europe, are tapping their watches. Italy, you done yet? You promised this would be clean. This is messy. You're making a scene. Giulio is trapped. He is snared in the sunk cost fallacy. He has spent billions of lira. He has shipped 100,000 men. And most importantly, he has already publicly annexed the country. He cannot, under any circumstances, back down. He can't just leave. That would be the end of his government, the end of the king's prestige, and a national humiliation so profound Italy might never recover. So, if he can't go back, and he can't win by going forward because the army is stuck, what's left? This, ladies and gentlemen, is that Italy throws a bigger tantrum phase. This is the moment a frustrated toddler, unable to solve a puzzle, decides to set the puzzle on fire. The Italian High Command, specifically the Admiralty, comes to Giulio with a new, very simple, and very, very dangerous plan. This is the meta commentary. This is the moment the Italo Turkish War stops being the Italo Turkish War and becomes the prelude to World War I. This is the escalation. The Italian government, in a fit of pure, petulant desperation, decides to change the entire war. The new strategy is simple. We will burn the Ottoman Empire's house down until they agree to give us their garage Libya. It is a monstrously risky gamble. Why? Because the rest of the Ottoman Empire isn't an empty desert. It's the Levant, Beirut, Syria. It's the Aegean full of Greek islands. It's the Dardanelles, the gateway to Russia's entire economy. These are places that the other great powers care about a lot. France has huge financial investments in Beirut. Britain needs the Eastern Mediterranean to be stable for its Suez Canal route. Russia will have a complete screaming panic attack if anyone messes with the Dardanelles. The Italian government knows this. They know this is like starting a knife fight in a dynamite factory, but they are that desperate. They are so terrified of the humiliation of losing their easy war that they are now willing to risk starting a global one just to get a W on the board. Giulio gives the nod. The leash is off. The admirals, who have been aching for this, don't waste a second. They have had plans drawn up for months. They don't want to start with the Dardanelles. That's the boss level. They'll start small. They'll start with a test, a demonstration. In February 1912, a squadron of Italian armored cruisers under the command of Admiral Ernesto Vialli detaches from the boring Libyan blockade. They turn their bows east. They are sailing for the Levant. Their target, the port of Beirut. Their mission, find whatever pathetic Ottoman naval vessels are hiding there and execute them, publicly, violently, right in front of all the other European powers. This is no longer a war of conquest. This is a punishment beating. And so, the Regia Marina, bored, beautiful, and bristling with 10-inch guns, steams east, away from the boring Libyan blockade and toward the glittering, cosmopolitan, and very flammable port of Beirut. This, they decided, is where they'll deliver their punishment beating. This is where they'll hit the Ottoman Empire's wallet, right in front of all the other great powers, just to prove they can. Admiral Vialli's squadron, led by the two big armored cruisers Giuseppe Garibaldi and Francesco Ferruccio, arrives off the Lebanese coast on February 24, 1912. Now, you have to understand, Beirut is not Tripoli. Tripoli was an Ottoman colonial backwater. Beirut was the Paris of the Middle East. It was a bustling, international hub of commerce. It was full of French banks, German shipping offices, British merchants, and Austrian diplomats. This was not a goings blazing kind of target. This was a Hanelwithker, don't break the Winnipeg kind of target. Hiding in the harbor are the threats the Italians are there to neutralize. They are the mighty, the powerful, oh, wait, no. It's the Ottoman casemate corvette Avnilla and the tiny torpedo boat Angora. The Avnilla is an ironclad from the 1860s. It's basically a floating museum exhibit that happens to have some large, rusty cannons. This is the entire Ottoman Levant squadron. It's adorable. Admiral Vialli, playing by the rules, sends an ultimatum to the Ottoman governor, or Vali, of Beirut. The message is simple and not very polite. Surrender those two ships immediately, or I will sink them at the docks. You have until 9 a.m. The Vali is in a total panic. He's a civilian politician. He can't just give the Navy's ships to the enemy. He sends frantic telegrams to Constantinople. He tries to stall the Italians. Please, sir, a delay. We must evacuate the civilians, the consulates, the women and children. Admiral Vialli looks at his watch. 8:59 a.m., 9 a.m., 9:01 a.m. Fire. The Italian armored cruisers steam forward, and this is not a battle. This is pest control. The Garibaldi and Ferruccio are modern, rapid-firing, armor-piercing machines of death. The Avnilla bravely fires a few shots from its ancient 19th century guns. The shells probably just bounce off the Italian armor with a sad plink. In response, the Italians just disintegrate it. They pour high-explosive 10-inch and 8-inch shells into the old ironclad. It is shredded. It catches fire. It lists horribly. The Angora, the little torpedo boat, tries to make a run for it. The Ferruccio turns its secondary guns on it and poof. It just explodes. In less than 15 minutes, the entire Ottoman Levant squadron is at the bottom of Beirut harbor. Mission accomplished. Victory. Glory to Italy, except for the oopsie. You see, the Italians, in their patriotic fervor to sink these two frankly pathetic ships, were missing a lot, and even the shells that hit, they went through. These Ottoman ships had, like, no armor. So, these massive, high-explosive shells are passing clean through the Avnilla and flying directly into the city of Beirut, and they're not hitting the local part of town. Oh no. They are hitting the waterfront, the docks, the customs house, the banks, the European quarter. Suddenly, the Paris of the Middle East is on fire. Civilians are screaming. Panicked merchants are running through the streets. A stray Italian shell just blew up a bank. Another one started a massive blaze in a warehouse district. This was not part of the plan. This was a diplomatic catastrophe. Let's check in at a very fancy Parisian cafe the next morning. France, sitting bolt upright, staring at a newspaper. The headline screams, Beirut ablaze. Italian victory sets Levant on fire. European banks destroyed. Italy struts in, chest puffed out, wearing a new naval kappa. France, my friend, did you hear the news? Bellissimo. We won. We sank both of them. The Turkish Navy is no more. Well, that part of it. A glorious. France looks up, eyes burning with a cold, aristocratic rage. It speaks very, very slowly. You set fire to my bank. Italy, a bank. What is a bank? This is war. War is messy. We are showing the Turk our. France, you set fire to my bank. And my silk warehouses. And the German shipping office. And you terrified my citizens, whom I am sworn to protect. Do you have any idea what my sphere of influence means? It means it is mine. And you, you chaotic, mustachioed idiot, just shot it. With a battleship. Italy, his swagger completely vanishes, but, the enemy, he was in your bank, near your bank. France, I don't care. Your little sandbox squabble was supposed to stay in the sandbox. You have just brought your stupid, provincial little war into my neighborhood. And you have broken my things. You are done. Get out. Get out of the Levant. Now, and this, folks, is the medicamentary. This is the Beirut oopsie in all its idiotic glory. It's the geopolitical equivalent of trying to kill a spider in your rich friend's apartment. With a shotgun. Yes, you got the spider. But you also blew a hole through his priceless Ming vase, shot his cat, and made the entire building hate you. The fallout was immediate. France wasn't just angry. France was furious. Austria-Hungary, which also had huge investments in Beirut, was furious. Britain was furious, bad form, old boy. Germany was furious, you damaged trade. All the great powers, the ones who gave Italy its permission slip, screamed at Italy in unison, what the hell are you doing? Italy panicked. It had finally gone too far. It had threatened European money. This was the one unforgivable sin. The Italian government immediately, humbly, grovelingly apologized to France, of course. Not to the dozens of Lebanese civilians they just killed. They paid reparations for the bank. The great escalation was a total failure. This punishment beating didn't scare the Ottomans at all. It just made Italy look like a clumsy, reckless amateur who couldn't control its own navy. The admirals were leashed again. The glorious Regia Marina was ordered to sail out of the Levant. In shame. So now the stalemate is worse. The army is still stuck. And the navy has just been banned from the most logical target. The high command is back at the map table. They are desperate. They have to escalate. But if they can't hit Beirut, where can they go? Where can they punch the Ottomans? That isn't in someone else's living room. So, the Beirut oopsie was an unmitigated 10 out of 10, pants and head diplomatic disaster. The Italian navy, the pride of the nation, had been scolded. They'd been yelled at by France, of all people, like a toddler caught playing with matches in a bank vault, and were forced to sail away in shame. The admirals are fuming. They are humiliated. They have been told, you cannot play in the Levant. That is our sandbox. But the core problem hasn't changed. In fact, it's worse. The army is still stuck in the sand. The war is still a catastrophic money pit. The government still can't back down. The failure in Beirut didn't make the Italians cautious. It made them more desperate. They are back at the map table. The admirals are practically vibrating with rage. Admiral Théon D. Revel, right? Fine, we can't hit Beirut. The French are protective of their banks, so we hit. Somewhere else, Giolitti, the prime minister, nervously now, Admiral, let's not be hasty. The French are very angry, and the Germans were displeased, and the Austrians sent a note of concern, Admiral, concern. We are losing. Our army is rotting on a beach. Our victory is a laughing stock. We must escalate. We must strike the Turk at his heart. If we can't hit him in the wallet, we'll hit him in the throat. Giolitti, voice squeaks, the throat. Admiral slams his finger down on the map. Not on Libya, not on Beirut. He slams it right on the tiny little channel of water leading to Constantinople. The Dardanelles. We will take the fleet, and we will bottle up the Ottoman capital. We will paralyze them. This was not a bright idea. This was a thermonuclear idea, because the Dardanelles Straits, that tiny 3/8-mile-long waterway, was not just the throat of the Ottoman Empire. It was everything. It was the single most sensitive, explosive, geopolitical tripwire on the planet. For the Ottoman Empire, it was their front door. If an enemy fleet got through, Constantinople would fall in an afternoon. The war would be over. The empire would be over. For Great Britain, it was the cork. They liked the sick man Ottomans controlling it because it kept the Russian Navy the bear-locked inside the Black Sea. But for Russia, the Dardanelles was not a strategic interest. It was a jugular vein. It was the great Russian obsession. All of Russia's vast grain exports from Ukraine, all the commerce from its only warm water ports, everything had to sail through that one, tiny, Ottoman-controlled channel to get to the Mediterranean and the rest of the world. If that channel ever closed, the entire Russian economy would instantly flatline. Everyone knew this. The concert of Europe had one single, unspoken gentleman's agreement. Nobody messes with the Straits. And Italy, in its infinite, desperate wisdom, just said, let's go mess with the Straits. In April 1912, an Italian fleet, led by Admiral Viali, who was clearly desperate to redeem his Beirut failure, steams right up to the mouth of the Dardanelles. They don't try to force their way in, not yet. That would be suicide against the massive coastal forts. No, they do something worse. They start poking. They fire a few test shots at the outer forts. They send in torpedo boats to try and cut the underwater telegraph cables. They announce their intention to blockade the entrance. The Ottomans, seeing the entire Italian navy just sitting at their front door, do the only thing they can do. They panic. On April 18, 1912, the Ottoman government orders the Dardanelles closed. To everyone, they activate the massive 19th century underwater minefields. They slam the gates shut. For a moment, there is silence. The Italians are floating there smugly. The Ottomans are cowering behind their forts, and in St. Petersburg, the Tsar has just had a complete and total aneurysm. Let's go to the Winter Palace. Russian Tsar Nicholas II, humming, happily counting his rubles from the wheat harvest. Another glorious day for the empire. The grain is so grainy. The profits are profitable. What could possibly go wrong? Russian Foreign Minister Sazonov slams through the door, paper in hand, white as a sheet. Tsar, my Tsar, oh father of Russia, the Straits, Tsar, what about the Straits? Lovely. Good water, very straight. Did the Ottomans finally let my battleships through? No, pity. Minister, nitrogen monoxide. Sir, the Italians, they are at the Straits. And the Turks have closed them. Tsar, the teacup in his hand stops halfway to his mouth. What, Minister? It's a catastrophe. There are 150 Russian grain ships, our entire export economy stuck in the Black Sea, and another 100 stuck outside. The port of Odessa is in chaos. The grain merchants are screaming. The economy is stopping. Sir, it's Italy, your friend, Italy, the one you gave a permission slip to. Tsar, his face goes from mild autocrat to genocidal ice god in 1 second. He stands up. And the room shakes. Closing parenthesis Tsar, Lady. And this, folks, is the metacomentary. This is the moment Italy graduated from rich friend's clumsy oaf to global arsonist, the Beirut. Oopsie was nothing. That was just money. This was survival. This was Italy, the kid who was already on probation for the Beirut incident, showing up and starting a knife fight inside the nuclear reactor. They didn't just poke the Ottoman bear. They strangled the Russian bear. The diplomatic fallout was not angry. It was apocalyptic. Russia went insane. They didn't send a note of concern. They sent an ultimatum. Get your ships. Away. From our. Throw. Now. And they weren't alone. Great Britain was livid. You morons. You've just shut down our grain shipping, too. My insurance rates, my Suez. You are destabilizing the entire globe over your stupid pile of sand. Austria-Hungary was furious. Germany was furious. For the second time into months, Italy was facing the united, screaming rage of every single great power in Europe. This time, it was 10 times worse. They had failed again. They had found the only thing more sensitive than French banks in Beirut, and poked it with a battleship. Humiliated, again, the Italian fleet is ordered, again, to back off. They turn their ships around. The admirals are 0 for 2 on escalation. The war is still not won. The army is still in the sand. And they are still desperate. They can't hit the Levant. They can't hit the Dardanelles. They have to hit the Ottomans. Somewhere. So, the Dardanelles poke wasn't a poke. It was a kick. A kick straight to the economic jugular of the Russian Empire. And the Tsar screamed. And when the Tsar screams, everyone in Europe gets a migraine. The diplomatic fallout from this Dardanelles incident was not a strongly worded letter. It was an explosion. It was the Beirut oopsie section 14 magnified by 1,000. Italy had just done the one, single, unforgivable thing in the concert of Europe. It wasn't the war. It wasn't the killing. It was the mess. Italy had threatened global stability. For a petty land grab. Let us be clear, this is the moment the great powers stop being passive-aggressive neighbors and become an angry homeowners association, banging on Italy's door at 6 a.m. First, Russia. Oh, Russia. Foreign Minister Sazonov basically sent a telegram to Rome that was just a picture of a fist, followed by the words open, the straits. Now, the Russian economy was hemorrhaging. Their grain was rotting in the ports. The merchants in Odessa were rioting. This wasn't a diplomatic concern for Russia. This was an existential threat. The Tsar, who had politely given Italy his permission slip for Libya Section 3, just violently revoked it. Second, Great Britain, the self-appointed manager of the entire planet, was livid. Sir Edward Grey, the British Foreign Secretary, was a man who hated chaos, and Italy was just pure, uncut chaos. Britain's shipping was also stuck. The insurance rates at Lloyd's of London had gone insane, but more than that, Britain knew that if Russia got this upset about the Straits, it might just invade the Ottomans to liberate them, which would start a general European war, and Britain was not ready for that yet. Third, and this is the most awkward part, Italy's own allies, Germany and Austria-Hungary. They were furious. Germany saw this as the ultimate betrayal. We are allies, and my new best friend is the Ottoman Empire. I'm building them a railway. My officers are training their army. And you, my friend, are bombing their capital. You are making me look like an idiot. And you're messing up my investments. Schnell, stop it. Austria-Hungary was even more panicked. Austria's entire foreign policy was please, God, do not let anything happen in the Balkans. Just keep it quiet. And Italy's little adventure was doing the exact opposite. It was showing the whole world, especially Serbia, Bulgaria, and Greece, that the Ottoman Empire was a paper tiger that couldn't even defend its own front door. Italy was, in Austria's eyes, in fighting the very Balkan War that Austria was terrified of. This brings us to the intervention. This is the moment the grown-ups in Germany take Italy into the principal's office. Let's set the scene. A dark, wood-paneled room in Vienna. Britain, Germany, and Austria-Hungary are sitting on one side of a table. Italy is on the other, sweating, trying to look great. Britain steeples fingers, sipping tea. Right. Italy, we need to talk. This thing you're doing, this war, it's untidy. Germany, slamming a Berlin-Baghdad railway blueprint on the table. Untidy. It is catastrophic. You, our ally, have just paralyzed the Russian economy. Do you know how unstable the Tsar is? And you are poking him in the eye. Italy, nervously adjusting its sash. But my war, my place in the sun. The army is stuck in the sand. I had to escalate. I am a great power. I have interests. Austria-Hungary, wringing its hands, your interests are giving my Serbia nightmares, ideas. They are seeing you. They are inspired. You are agitating the Balkans. Stop agitating the Balkans. Britain, let's be perfectly clear, shall we? Nobody in this room cares about Libya. Do you understand? It is a desert. We do not care. What we do care about is global stability, which is a polite term for our money and our shipping lanes and our spheres of influence, and you, in your adorable quest for a place in the sun, have just set all of it on fire. Germany, the Dardanelles is off limits. Britain, the Levant, as France has made abundantly clear, is off limits. Italy, but how am I supposed to win? The Ottomans won't surrender. They mock me. Britain leans forward, his voice a cold whisper that, my dear, excitable junior colleague, is your problem, not ours. Fix it, and this, quietly, or we will end you. Get your ships out of the global waterways and go back to your sandbox. Am I clear? And this is the medicamentary. This is the moment Italy, the new kid who so desperately wanted to be part of the cool empire club, gets hazed. This is the moment the great powers show Italy exactly what its permission slip section 3 actually meant. It meant you may have a small, private, tidy war. You may not disrupt the business of your betters. Italy, in its desperation, had broken the #1 rule of imperialism. Don't let your colonial war mess with the other guys' empires. The humiliation is total. The Regia Marina, the pride of Italy, the great tool of escalation, is now leashed. It has been publicly, globally, banned from every single important target. They have been ordered, in no uncertain terms, to stop threatening global stability. So, Italy is back at square one, but it's worse. The army is still stuck in the sand. The government still can't back down, and now their entire naval strategy is in the trash. They cannot win in Libya. They cannot win in Beirut. They cannot win in the Dardanelles. They have to punch the Ottomans somewhere. Somewhere the Ottomans will feel it. Somewhere that isn't the Levant. Somewhere that isn't the Dardanelles. The admirals are furious. They are defeated. They are fuming. They look at the map of the Aegean Sea again, and they see a loophole, a plan C. Fine, the admirals say, we can't hit the Dardanelles. We can't hit Beirut, but what about those? They point to a scattered chain of islands right next to the Ottoman coast, the Dodecanese. So, the Great Power Homeowners Association has just reamed Italy out. The message was crystal clear. You can't play in the Levant. You definitely can't play in the Dardanelles. Go back to your sandbox Libya and finish your stupid war quietly. This is, for Rome, the worst of all possible worlds. The army is still a besieged, cholera-ridden prison camp. The government is still facing riots at home. And now, their only escalation strategy, the Regia Marina, has been publicly, humiliatingly leashed. They cannot win in Africa. They are now banned from winning in Asia or Europe. They are, to put it mildly, screwed. But Italy is a nation of lawyers. And when a lawyer is told you cannot do X and you cannot do Y, their immediate response is to find a Z that is technically not X or Y, but achieves the same result. The admirals and politicians are back at the map table. Their rage is creative. Admiral Theon D. Revel, his eye is twitching. They leashed me, France, and Britain. They scolded me. The admiral of the Regia Marina, Giulio the Prime Minister, nervously, Admiral, please, calm down. The Russians were very upset about their grain. The whole global economy. Admiral, screw the global economy. My war is failing. My navy is a joke. I am sitting here with the 4th largest fleet in the world, and I am being told to just float and wait while my army rots. No, none. Giulio, but what can we do? We are banned. We are banned from the Levant. We are banned from the Straits. Admiral, a slow, evil, lawyerly grin spreads across his face. He points to the map. He points to the Aegean Sea. Not at the Dardanelles, but just south of it. But are we banned from these? He's pointing at a tiny, scattered spray of islands. The Dodecanese. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the loophole. This is island hopping for spite. The great power said, don't poke the Dardanelles Straits. They said, don't hit the mainland Levant. They didn't specifically say anything about these 12 random islands that just happened to be owned by the Ottoman Empire, and just happened to sit directly on the shipping lanes, and just happened to be right next to the Ottoman coast. It's the I'm not touching you defense. What? I'm not at the Straits. I'm near the Straits. It's totally different. The plan is greenlit. It's Plan C, and it's a pure tantrum. The goal is no longer strategic. The goal is leverage. The goal is to steal something else the Ottomans actually care about, to hold it hostage until they agree to give up the thing the Italians actually want, Libya, which they have failed to take. This is like losing a fist fight, so you run over and steal the other guy's dog. In late April 1912, the Regia Marina unleashed at last steams for the southern Aegean. With them, they bring an actual, full-scale invasion force of 40,000 men under a new general, Ameglio. This is not a poke. This is a conquest. Their primary target, the biggest, most important, and most famous of the islands, Rhodes. On May 4th, 1912, the Italians land. And this is the war they wanted all along. This is what they're good at. It's not a desert quagmire. It's an amphibious assault, supported by massive naval guns. The Ottoman garrison on Rhodes is pathetic. It's maybe 2,000 men, sources vary, completely cut off, with no hope of reinforcement. They put up a brave, token fight for about 2 weeks. But by May 16th, it's over. The Ottoman commander surrenders. The Italians have won. They have actually, really, for reals this time conquered a thing. They immediately hop to the other islands.cos.patmos.leros.kalymnos. 11 others. They just take them, one by one. It's easy. By the end of May, the Dodecanese, the 12 islands, are under total Italian military occupation. Italy has its victory. It has its leverage, but they have, once again, stepped in it. In their myopic, desperate, Italy-first rage, they have forgotten one tiny, insignificant detail about the Dodecanese Islands. The people. The 100,000-plus people who live there. They aren't Turks. They are Greeks. Overwhelmingly. Passionately Greek. Let's go to the harbor at Rhodes. Italy General Ameglio plants the Italian tricolor on the ancient ramparts of the Knights of St. John. He kisses the flag. Vittoria, at last. A real Vittoria. We have islands. Look, everyone, islands. We are holding them hostage now. Now the Sultan must give us Libya. Ha ha ha. He turns around, expecting cheers. He sees a massive crowd of Greeks. They are cheering, but they are also holding Greek flags and welcome liberators. Banners. A Greek Orthodox priest steps forward. Greece as the priest. Calysarisma. Welcome. Welcome, brave Italians. You have done it. You have liberated us. After 500 years, you have thrown off the yoke of the Turk. Evcharisto. Thank you. Italy blushes, puffs out chest. Yes. Prego. You are welcome. We are liberators. Yes. Liberating all of you. Greece, it is a glorious day for Hellenism. A glorious day for Gnosis Union. So, we will just get our government set up. We assume you will be transferring administrative control to Athens. By the end of the week, we already have the new mayor picked out. It's my cousin, Spiro. Italy, his smile freezes. The sound of a record scratch is heard. Transferred to Athens, oh. Oh, my dear, sweet, Olive's and fatal-loving friend, no. No, no, no. Greece, his smile also freezes. No, what? What do you mean, no? Italy, this is temporary, a temporary military occupation. Yes, we are holding these islands as leverage, UC.2, to get Libya from the Turk. Greece, leverage. Italy, yes. But don't worry, once the war is over, we will probably give them back to the OTDOMANS.wink. Greece, give them back to the Turks. You aren't liberating US. You are just re-gifting US. You are just as bad as the Turks. You are. Italy claps a hand over Greece's mouth. Shh. Temporary. Leverage. These are the diplomatic words. Just be quiet and enjoy the pasta. And this, folks, is the meta commentary. Italy, in a tantrum, just accidentally sat on the stove. They thought they were just stealing a dog from the Ottomans, but they actually just stole the favorite, sacred, ancestral pet of the Greeks. They have just, with one move, dragged an entirely new country into their drama. Greece is now furious. The Greek government in Athens is lodging protests. The Greek population of the islands, who welcome the Italians as liberators, are instantly disillusioned and are this close to starting a new resistance against their new liberators. But more importantly, everyone else in the Balkans is watching. The Serbs, the Bulgarians, the Montenegrins, they just watched Italy A European power. Sailing, punched the Ottomans in the face and easily steal 12 of their islands. The Dardanelles poke proved the Ottomans were weak at the center. The Dodecanese invasion proved they were hollow on the edges. The sick man isn't just sick. He's in the morgue. He just doesn't know it. And in capitals all across the Balkans, the phone lines start buzzing. Did you see that? They just took Rhodes. The time, I think the time is now. Is your army ready? Is yours? Italy's Plan C just became the starting gun for the real war. So, Italy has its Plan C victory. It's island hopping for spite. They have, with great naval flourish, stolen the Dodecanese islands. They have their leverage. They have their hostages. They've got Rhodes. General Ameglio is polishing his new governor of the Aegean nameplate. The admirals are finally satisfied. They have won something. And then they wait. They wait for the telegram from Constantinople. The okay, fine. You can have the stupid dessert. Just give us back our islands telegram. And the telegram doesn't come. Because the Ottoman Empire, as we've established, is the sick man of Europe. And his main symptom, his pre-existing condition, is the Balkans. The Young Turk government looks at its map. They hate that Italy took the islands. It's a humiliation. But they are 10 times more terrified of what Bulgaria and Serbia and Greece are about to do to Macedonia. They are, to put it bluntly, distracted by a much bigger fire. So, they stall. They just don't respond. And back in Rome, the coldest of all dreads begins to set in. The island-hopping plan also isn't working. It was a naval victory. It was a PR victory. But it did not solve the central problem. The war is still not over. And that means we have to go back to the original scene of the crime, back to the 100,000-man army that is still sitting on the beaches of Libya, still stuck, still dying of cholera, still trapped in its own barbed wire Tripoli box. This is the ultimate humiliation. All the escalations, Beirut, the Dardanelles, the Dodecanese, all of it was just a distraction, a way to avoid confronting the actual war. And now there are no distractions left. The Navy has done all it can do. The diplomats have failed. The only thing left is the army. The Italian high command in Rome is furious. The original general, Caneva, the guy who built the Tripoli box and said it est hot and sandy to advance, has been fired. He has been branded a coward, a failure. A new, more aggressive general is sent in, probably someone like General Di Martino, a man with one simple, screaming order from the king: for the love of God, move. I have given you 100,000 of my best men. You are being held at bay by a few thousand Turkish officers and some sand people, and this, win the war, break out, and so the army moves. This is the brutal inland slog, and it is exactly as horrible as it sounds. The new general, brimming with Roman spirit and European superiority, gives the order: fix bayonets, full advance. A massive column, 20,000 men strong, forms up. They have artillery. They have bersaglieri with their stupid, giant, feathery hats. They have the brand new aeroplanes Section 9 flying overhead, scouting the way. They are a modern army, and they march into the sand. It is, almost instantly, a catastrophe. The aeroplanes fly over. Sir, the enemy is at an oasis, 10 miles that way. Excellent. The general says. March. And the 20,000 men march into sand. The artillery, with its lovely European wheels built for lovely European roads, sinks up to its axles in the first 3 minutes. The mules pulling the water wagons start to die. The men in their heavy wool uniforms, designed for the cool Italian Alps, start to collapse from heat stroke. After 4 hours of indescribable suffering, the column has moved 2 miles, and it is already out of water. And the enemy, the ghosts, the Ottoman and Libyan resistance, they are watching from the tops of dunes, on their camels. They are laughing. They don't fight this giant, dying column. Why would they? It's killing itself. No, they just poke it. A dozen horsemen appear, gallop at the back of the column, fire 1 volley at the water wagons, and vanish. A sniper, a mile away, poof, picks off an officer. The Italians stop. They form a defensive square. They fire their cannons at nothing, at a dune, and the resistance is just gone. They've already ridden 5 miles away and are having a nice cup of tea. This is the slog. It is hell. The Italians try and fail to control the interior. They capture an oasis. only to find the ghosts have already poisoned the well and vanished. The victory is just more sand. The army cannot win. It cannot move. It cannot fight an enemy it cannot find, in a climate it cannot survive. The new aggressive general is now just the old stuck general. He's back in his bunker, and the mood has changed. The glory is gone. The Roman spirit is gone. All that is left is rage. Let's listen in on the Italian high command in Tripoli. The new general slams his helmet on the table. Impossible. It is impossible. We cannot beat them. We cannot find them. They are sand fleas. They know this place. They belong here. We do not. A ruthless colonel. General, you are correct. We cannot beat the fighters. General, so what? We surrender. We go home. The king will have me shot, and the socialists will protest. Colonel, no. Sir, we change the target. General, change the target. What target is left? Colonel, the population. Sir, you are trying to fight a fish. You will never catch the fish. Not in his ocean. So, you must drain the ocean. General, a long, cold silence. Drain the ocean. Colonel, the ghost eats. He sleeps. He gets water. His family lives somewhere. His sheep graze somewhere. That. General, that is our target. We stop fighting the army, and we start punishing the sea. And this, ladies and gentlemen, right here, this is the documentary. This is the moment the Italo Turkish War stops being a war and becomes a war crime. This is the true, ugly, disgusting face of the civilizing mission. The mask is off. The gloves are off. The We're here to liberate propaganda is in the trash. The new Italian policy, the only policy left, is pacification, which is and always has been a polite, clinical, three-syllable word for pure, systematic, organized terrorism. The orders go out, and they are grim. Collective punishment. A sniper fires from a village. The village is forfeit. Burn it. All of it. Destroy the food. The ghosts eat dates and barley. Burn the barley fields. Cut down the date palms. Destroy the wealth. The Libyan tribe's entire economy is their livestock, their sheep, their goats, their camels. Slaughter them. All of them. This is not a raid. This is an extermination of their entire way of life. Destroy the water. Find a well. Poison it. Or fill it with concrete. Public executions. Any Arab, any Libyan, found with a rifle or near a rifle, they are not a prisoner of war. They are a rebel and a bandit. The punishment is hanging publicly in the main square and leave the bodies. This is the brutal slog. It's not a slog to victory. It's a slog into darkness. The Italian army, the heirs of Rome, are now just monsters. They are trying and failing to terrorize an entire population into submission because they are losing to that population's actual fighters. And the worst part, the most humiliating part for Italy, it doesn't even work. It just doesn't. It doesn't break the resistance. It forges it. It unifies it. It turns a guerrilla war into a total war of survival. The Libyans and the Ottomans don't surrender. They just fight harder because now they have nothing left to lose. So the Italian army is no longer an army, it's an extermination service. The generals have fully embraced the drain the ocean philosophy, and they have drafted the pacification playbook to make it happen. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the civilizing mission puts on its jackboots and its darkest, most bureaucratic, just following Gerd smile. This is the moment the mask doesn't just slip, Italy eats it. The new playbook is not about winning battles. It's about systematizing terror. It is cold, it is clinical, and it is built onto horrifying pillars, mass executions and concentration camps. Pillar 1, the executions. The new orders are simple. This is a police action against rebels, not a war against soldiers. This is a crucial legal distinction, because if they aren't soldiers, they don't get the privileges of a soldier, like living after you surrender, any Libyan fighter captured, or, frankly, any Libyan man found in a hostile area is immediately declared a bandit, and the punishment for banditry? It's not prison, it's the gallows, and the Italians, in their Roman wisdom, understood the value of theater. They didn't just shoot these bandits out in the desert. No, that's a waste of a perfectly good deterrent. They saved them. They would march them, in chains, back to the pacified coastal cities like Tripoli and Derna. They would build huge, public gallows in the main city squares, and then they would hang them, in batches, dozens at a time. It was a spectacle. It was terrorism, pure and simple, designed to break the will of the population, to show them. This is what happens when you resist. We will not just defeat you, we will humiliate you and erase you. Pillar 2, the concentration camps. This is the big one. This is the drain the ocean part. The generals are sitting in their bunkers, looking at the maps from their new airplanes. We know the fighters are in that oasis. But when we get there, they're gone. They've melted back into the civilian population. We can't tell who's who. It's impossible. The solution from the playbook is simple, brutal, and systematic. If we cannot separate the fish from the sea, we will manually move the sea. The orders go out. The Italian army will no longer just raid a village. It will empty it. Columns of bersaglieri march into a tribal area. They round up everyone. The women, the children, the old men, the entire civilian population. They are declared potentially hostile or, in the most cynical perspectivity, in need of protection. They are allowed to take nothing, and then they are marched. These are not nice marches. These are death marches. Hundreds of miles across the desert, in the blazing heat, with no food and no water, all the way back to the safety of the coast. The elderly and the sick who fall behind are left behind or shot. And where are they protecting them? Oh, this is the best part. They are protecting them in brand new, custom-built concentration camps. This isn't a metaphor. This is literally what they were. The Italians built giant, barbed wire pens on the salt flats near the coast. Just barbed wire. In the sand, there is no housing. There is no sanitation. There is barely any food. They just dump tens of thousands of civilians into these open-air prisons and leave them there. Let's imagine the Italian camp commandant giving a tour to, let's say, the ghost of the Hague Convention. Italian commandant very proud, and this is our new relocation center at, let's say, Ilagila, a triumph of modern logistics. Hague Convention, a ghostly, weeping figure, but it's just barbed wire and sand. There are 20,000 women and children sitting in the sun. They have no water. Commandant, nonsense. We are protecting them from the bad rebels. It is safer here. We have guards. Hague Convention. Sir, they are dying. They are dying of cholera. They are dying of starvation. This is monstrous. Commandant pulls out his pacification playbook, taps a page. But you see, Article 4, Section 2 of my playbook, the population must be separated from the rebels. It's policy. It is pacification. It's not my fault they have weak constitutions. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go supervise a hanging. Chow. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the media commentary. This is the civilizing mission. This is the true face of Italy's grand Roman adventure. The nation that started this whole fiasco because the Ottomans were neglecting Libya is now liberating the Libyans by systematically and deliberately exterminating them. The numbers are sickening. By the time this pacification is finished years later, under Mussolini, who perfected this playbook, something like 1/3 of the entire population of Cyrenaica will be dead, killed in the camps, killed on the marches, hanged in the squares. But here's the central, strategic, military point. The ultimate Italian failure. The final joke. It did not work. This is not how you pacify a population. This is how you forge one. When you burn a man's farm, when you seize his wife and children and send them to a death camp, when you publicly hang his brother for banditry, you have not broken his will to fight. You have removed every single reason he had to ever stop fighting. You have created a ghost. You have created an enemy who has nothing left to lose. Italy's pacification playbook was the single greatest recruiting tool for the Ottoman and Libyan resistance they could have possibly imagined. The war didn't stop. It got worse. The resistance didn't break. It became iron. The Italians are now truly stuck. They cannot win militarily on the ground. Their naval escalations, Beirut, Dardanelles, Dodecanese have all failed to end the war, and now their last desperate gamble, a policy of pure genocidal terror, has also failed. It has just made the ghosts angrier. Italy is losing. They are losing a war they won a year ago. They are humiliated. They are bankrupt. They are out of ideas. They are desperate, and someone else has noticed. The Italian war effort is, to put it mildly, a moral and strategic black hole. The army is a genocidal failure, stuck in the sand. The navy is a leashed, humiliated failure, banned from every useful target. The pacification program is a sociopathic failure that has only strengthened the enemy's will to fight. And the Plan C Dodecanese hostage taking is also a failure. because the Ottomans, while humiliated, are still not surrendering. Italy is stuck. They are stuck in a war they cannot win and cannot leave. The Giulio government is on the verge of collapse. The country is bankrupt. The quick, glorious war has become a year-long, public, global humiliation. But here's the thing about failing loudly in public. People are watching. And as the Italian civilizing mission descended into a quagmire of war crimes and incompetence, there was a group of nations right next door that was watching this entire dumpster fire with a profound and growing sense of glee. We must now pan away from the deserts of Libya and the admiral's tantrum in the Aegean. We must turn our gaze back to the sick man's other border, the one that really matters. We must go. Meanwhile, in the Balkans, meet the Ottoman Empire's other neighbors, the ones that share a land border. Let's call them the vultures. Bulgaria, the muscle, the Prussia of the Balkans. Big, tough, aggressive, and desperate to be the dominant power in the region. It has the biggest army, and it wants Macedonia and, more importantly, Thrace, the land that would give it a port. On the Aegean Sea, Serbia the Avenger, still seething with rage after Austria-Hungary snatched Bosnia out from under it in 1908. Serbia knows it can't fight Austria yet, so it has turned its entire nationalistic fury southward. It wants old Serbia, Kosovo, and a huge chunk of Macedonia. Greece the dreamer. We met Greece in section 17, when it got furious at Italy for regifying the Dodecanese. Greece is obsessed with the Megali idea, the big idea of liberating all Greeks and rebuilding a new Byzantium. It wants Crete. It wants southern Macedonia, Salonika. It wants all the islands. Montenegro and Montenegro, tiny, fierce, mountainous, mostly just wants to get in a good scrap, prove it's tough, and maybe grab a little piece of Albania. For decades, these four nations have been terrified of the Ottomans, and for decades, they have hated each other bitterly. They all want the exact same piece of land, Macedonia. They've spent more time fighting each other in little guerrilla actions than fighting the Turks. But then came 1911, then came Italy. They watched. For a full year, they just watched. And what they saw was a revelation. They saw Italy a new power. The weakest of the great powers tied the entire Ottoman Empire in knots. They saw the Ottomans completely failed to send a single reinforcement ship to Libya. Proof, the Ottoman Navy is a joke. They saw the entire Italian Navy sail right up to the Dardanelles, the very throat of the Ottoman capital, and the Turks just panicked and hid. Proof, the Ottoman heart is undefended. They saw Italy in a fit of pique, just sailing and steal 12 islands, the Dodecanese, and the Ottomans did nothing. Proof, the Ottoman limbs are hollow. The sick man isn't just sick, he's paralyzed. He's distracted, he's broke, he's weak, right now, this very second. And in the capital cities of Sofia, Belgrade, Athens, and Cetinje, the phone lines start buzzing. The secret meetings begin. Let's imagine a very tense, very secret meeting in some forgotten railway car. Bulgaria stands at a map. All right. We all hate each other. Understood. Yes, good, but look. Points at the map. The Turk, he's busy. Serbia, he's getting his ass kicked out by Italy. I still can't believe it. Greece, it's true. They took Rhodes, his islands, and he just let them. He's got all his good troops in Yemen or Albania or thinking about Libya. There is no one left in Macedonia. Montenegro, I can take him. Let me go. I'll punch him right now. Bulgaria, sighs quiet. The point is, the great powers Britain, France, etc. have always told us no, you cannot touch the sick man, it will destabilize things. But Italy just did, and the great powers just scolded him. They let him keep the islands. The rules are gone. A heavy, greedy silence fills the room. Serbia, a slow grin. So, if Italy can do it, Greece, imagine what we could do. Bulgaria, imagine what all four of us could do at the same time. We liberate everything. We kick him out of Europe. Forever. We split Macedonia. Serbia, suspicious. How do we split Macedonia? Bulgaria, we'll figure that part out later. That's a tomorrow problem. The today problem is that the pie is on the table and the owner is in the bathroom. We go now. And this, folks, this right here is the single most important metacomentary of the entire war. This is the real consequence. This is the real escalation. Italy's pathetic, hubristic, racist place in the Sun adventure was the starting gun for the Balkan Wars. They formed a Let's Jump M club. They called it the Balkan League. with the secret encouragement of Russia, who was still furious at the Ottomans for the Straits closure, and also wanted to create a Slavic shield against its real enemy, Austria-Hungary. These four mortal enemies signed a pact. They agreed to put their own rivalries on hold for 6 months, just long enough to murder their common landlord and steal all his stuff. By September 1912, the League is active. Their armies are mobilized. They are massed on the Ottoman borders. They have hundreds of thousands of fresh, angry, motivated troops, and they are all just staring at the pathetic, hollowed-out Ottoman forces on the other side. The entire Italo Turkish War was just a distraction. This is the main event. The Balkan League is formed, the Let's Jump M Club, the Vultures, the least stable, most backstabbing, most aggressively nationalistic alliance in European history is real. Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece, and Montenegro have all signed a secret pact. They have put their own mutual hatred on pause, all thanks to the inspiring, year-long demonstration of total Ottoman weakness provided by Italy. For a full year, they watched Italy, a B-list great power, run circles around the Ottoman Empire, prove its navy was a joke, prove its capital was defenseless, and prove its borders were hollow. The sick man was, they all agreed, paralyzed. The pie was on the table. Now, just like Italy, they needed an excuse, a casus belli. Italy, at least, had spent a decade manufacturing its grievances. Section 4. The Balkan League didn't have that kind of patience. They were way too excited. So, in late September 1912, they just drafted a list of demands. They sent a joint note to Constantinople that was the most transparently disingenuous start-a-fight document you can imagine. It demanded that the Ottoman Empire immediately, right now, grant massive reforms and autonomy to all of its European provinces. Macedonia, Thrace, Albania, everything. This was, of course, a joke. It was a poison pill. It was a diplomatic sham. Autonomy was just a word for giving it to us without a fight. They knew the Ottomans would never agree. It was a demand for total surrender. It was the international equivalent of, hey, we're gonna punch you, unless you just punch yourself in the face, yeah? Just do that. The Ottomans, naturally, were outraged. They stalled. They said, this is an internal matter. How dare you? They tried to appeal to the real great powers, Britain, France, etc., for help. But the Balkan League wasn't waiting for a no. The no was assumed. The fuse was lit, and then Montenegro got antsy. Tiny Montenegro, the smallest, fiercest, most in Montenegro member of the League. They were, apparently, just too hyped up. They couldn't wait for the official start of the war, so on October 8, 1912, 10 days before the main alliance was set to move, Montenegro just declared war. By itself, it was the most glorious Leroy Jenkins moment in 20th century warfare. The king of Montenegro just went for it. In Belgrade and Sofia and Athens, the generals all just groaned. Oh, fine, he's gone, go. On October 17th and 18th, the real dominoes fell. Bulgaria declared war. Serbia declared war. Greece declared war. The Balkan War had ignited. Now we must fly to Constantinople, to the Grand Vizier's office, for a full year. This room has been the Italy panic center. It has been consumed by the Libyan quagmire, the naval humiliations, the Dodecanese hostages, the pacification failures. They are exhausted. Let's check in. Ottoman Grand Vizier, staring at a map of Libya, head in hand. So, the pacification has failed again. The ghosts are angrier, and Italy still won't give back roads. What else could possibly go wrong? An aide, pale-faced, bursts through the door. He is shaking. He is holding for separate telegrams. Aide 1, sir. Montenegro, they have declared war. Grand Vizier doesn't even look up Montenegro. Adorable. Send to battalions. Tell them to SWAT Montenegro now. About this Libyan. Aide 1, gasping, sir. And Greece has declared war. Grand Vizier looks up. Annoyed. Greece again. Fine. They want to fight our navy. Our navy is hiding. They'll be fine. Aide to running in. Sir, Serbia has declared war. Their army is marching on Kosovo. Grand Vizier stands up, knocking over his chair. Serbia, but their army is real. Aide 1 drops the 4th telegram and Bulgaria, sir. Bulgaria has declared war. A dead, cold, absolute silence fills the room. The Grand Vizier is white. He is not breathing. He just stares. Grand Vizier, Bulgaria. But Bulgaria's army it's 300,000 men. It's the Prussia of the Balkans. Where are they marching? Aid 1, whispering, on Thris, sir, they are marching towards Edirne, towards US, and this, ladies and gentlemen, right here, this is the meta commentary. This is the catastrophic two-front existential crisis. The war with Italy was a colonial war. It was a nuisance. It was a humiliation. It was for a distant pile of sand and some useless islands. It was a war of pride. This Balkan war, this is a war of survival. This is not a quagmire. This is an invasion. This is not a distraction. This is an existential threat. The Bulgarian army is not 100,000 seasick conscripts trapped on a beach. It is 300,000 hardened veterans marching on their capital for 1 year. Italy had sucked up all of the Ottoman Empire's attention, all of its diplomatic energy, all of its best officers, and now, the real war has begun. The Ottomans are facing two wars at the same time. War Front 1 South, a naval, colonial war against Italy, a great power, a war they are humiliatingly losing. War Front to West, a massive land war against allied nations, a war that is threatening their entire European homeland. They cannot fight both. They cannot win both. They don't have the men. They don't have the money. They don't have the time. The Young Turk government, in this one instant, in this one room, realizes the horrifying, catastrophic truth. The Italy war must end now, today, at any cost. The air in the Grand Vizier's office in Constantinople isn't just tense, it's a solid, unbreathable brick of pure, sphincter-clenching panic. The Balkan League is real. The Vultures Section 20 are not a problem, they are an avalanche, and they are here. Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece, Montenegro, all at once. This is not a colonial issue. This is not a border skirmish. This is a forefront invasion of the homeland. This is it. This is the end. For one solid, unbearable year, the entire Ottoman government has been obsessed with one single, infuriating word: Italy. Italy did this. Italy stole that. How do we stop Italy? How do we get our islands back from Italy? How do we fight Italy's aeroplanes? How do we get Mustafa Kemal out of the Italian quagmire? And now, in this one instant, as the telegrams from the Balkan front pile up on the desk, Serbs at Skopje, Greeks at Salonika, Bulgarians rout the main army at Kirk-Kilis. The entire Italo Turkish War is instantly and hilariously reframed. It is nothing. It is a joke. It is a distraction. It is an asterisk stupid, pointless, insanely expensive hobby that they cannot believe they've been wasting their time on. This is the Ottoman panic button. It is a giant, red, oh my god, we've been fighting the wrong war button. And the Grand Vizier is smashing it with both fists. Let's personify this. The Ottoman Empire is a man. For a year, he's been in a very public, very annoying fist fight in his own front yard with, let's call him Italy, a very well-dressed, very loud, but not very good fighter. Italy is punching the Ottoman in the arm, stealing his watch the Dodecanese, and demanding his pool house Libya. It's humiliating. And then, as they're rolling around on the lawn, the Ottoman's actual house explodes. And for much larger, much scarier men, the Balkan League kick down the burning front door, holding crowbars, and start carrying his refrigerator out. The Ottoman Empire stops fighting. He freezes. He looks at Italy. He looks at the burning house. He looks back at Italy. Okay. He gasps. Okay. You win. What? Says Italy, fixing his hair. You win. Take the stupid pool house. I don't care. I have to go. I really have to go. Fight the guy stealing my refrigerator. This is exactly what happened. The Ottoman government, in a total, screaming panic, screams for its diplomats. Get me the Italians. Find them now. Tell them we'll talk. Tell them we'll sign whatever. Just make them stop. And so we go to Auchi. Yes, Auchi, a very lovely, very neutral suburb of Lausanne in Switzerland. This is where the peace talks have been stalling for months. The Italians have been demanding Libya. The Ottomans have been saying never. The Italians have been saying, but we have your islands. The Ottomans have been saying we don't care. We will never surrender sovereign land. Now, let's crash that very same meeting, just one day after the Balkan War has exploded. Italian diplomat, smugly sipping a latte, admiring the lake, so as we, again, discussed. Italy demands Libya, and you, again, will refuse, and we will, again, continue our glorious occupation of roads. The doors to the hotel conference room burst open. The Ottoman diplomat stumbles in. He is not wearing his fez. His suit is wrinkled. He is drenched in sweat. He is holding 50 telegrams. Ottoman diplomat, okay, yes, fine, you can have IT. Italian diplomat spits out his latte. Cosa, what? Ottoman diplomat, Libya, the sand, the dessert. IT's, yours, take IT. Congratulazioni. Now, the treaty. Where's the treaty? We must sign the treaty right now. A nervous aide runs in and hands the Ottoman diplomat another telegram. Ottoman diplomat reads it. His face goes palero. Allah, the Bulgarians are at Lulburgaz. We must sign now. Italian diplomat, a slow, wolfish grin spreads across his face. He has no idea what a Lulburgaz is, but he knows. Panic. He leans back. He slowly, savoringly, takes another sip of his latte. Ho, pianissimo, my friend, take it. Just like that. But we have terms. We have details. Ottoman diplomat, what details? We give you, Libya, you, go, home. Those are the details, SIGN. Italian diplomat, but it's not simple. Is it? You are the Sultan, the Caliph of all Muslims. You cannot just give to million of your Muslim subjects to a Christian king. It would be blasphemy. Your own people would revolt. No, this is very complicated. We must think about the wording, and this is the medicamentary. This is the most glorious, anticlimactic, hilarious victory in modern history. Italy won. They won, not because their army won, it was losing, not because their navy won, it was leashed, not because their terror tactics won, they backfired. Italy won because Bulgaria invaded Thrace. Italy won its great Roman War, by complete, total, idiotic, default. They are the kid who won the boxing match because his opponent tripped on the way to the ring, broke his neck, and died. And now, Italy is standing over the body, raising its own arms in victory as the ref counts to 10. And the Ottomans are begging, they are pleading, please, just take the win. Please sign the treaty. Why? Because they need this war to end. They need to get their officers back. They need Mustafa Kemal. They need Enver Pasha. They need their best, brightest, most experienced tactical minds out of the stupid Libyan desert and back to the actual, real, existential war for their survival that they are catastrophically losing. Right now, Italy has them. They have all the leverage. And the Ottomans have none. Every tick of the clock is another Bulgarian victory. Every hour they delay is another town lost in Macedonia. The awkward Ouchy peace talks are on, and they are about to become the messiest breakup in history. So, the scene is Ouchy, Switzerland, a very polite, very neutral, very expensive lakeside hotel. This is where, for months, the Italian and Ottoman diplomats have been meeting, sipping tea, and getting absolutely nothing done. The Italian stance was, give us Libya. The Ottoman stance was, go jump in the lake. And now, everything has changed. The Balkan League has ignited Section 21. The Ottoman Empire is not in a colonial war anymore. It is in an existential war. And the Ottoman diplomat, Said Halim Pasha, is no longer a negotiator. He is a Malinfarwanefentistian. Let's crash the meeting room on October 15, 1912. The Balkan War is literally exploding right now. Italian diplomat Bertolini, carefully inspecting his fingernails, so, as we were saying, for the 14th time, the king insists on full and total sovereignty over. Ottoman diplomat Said Halim slams his hands on the table, knocking over a water carafe. He is drenched in sweat. He is holding a telegram that just says, Bulgarians, everywhere, yes, Evit, see, fine, take it. Italian diplomat freezes, looks up, a tiny, cruel smile plays on his lips. I'm sorry. I don't think I heard you. Said Halim, Libya, Tripolitania, Cyrenaica, the sand, it is yours. We surrender. Congratulations. We renounce everything. Now, the treaty, we must sign. Now, I must catch the 4:30 train. The Italian diplomat leans back. He does not pick up a pen. He steeples his fingers. He has been waiting for this moment his entire life. The kid who begged for a permission slip is now in charge. Italian diplomat, ho, pianissimo, my friend, gently, surrender, renounce. Oh, no. No, it is so much more complicated than that. Said Halim, his face is a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. Complicated? What do you mean? Complicated. You won. I said you won. What is there to talk about? Italian diplomat. The Caliph. My friend, we have to talk about the Caliph and this, ladies and gentlemen. This is the awkward ouchy peace talk. This is the most confusing surrender in modern history because the Italian diplomat is right. Here is the central, maddening problem. Italy cannot accept anything less than full and total sovereignty. Their king has already annexed it by Decree Section 6. Their pride is on the line. They must own Libya. The Ottoman Sultan cannot ever give full and total sovereignty. Why? Because he is not just a sultan, a political king. He is the Caliph, the successor to the Prophet, the religious leader of all Sunni Muslims on earth. And you cannot, as the Caliph, just sell to million of your faithful Muslim subjects to a Christian king like a sack of potatoes. It is blasphemy. It is apostasy. It is political and religious suicide. The second he does that, every Muslim in his own empire, the Arabs, the Kurds, everyone might revolt. So Italy must get a yes. The Ottomans cannot say yes, but the Ottomans must end this war today. Because the Bulgarian army is currently 50 miles from their capital, they are stuck. This is a paradox. This is a Zen koan of diplomatic failure. How do you surrender without surrendering? You lie. You get creative. You build a Rube Goldberg machine of diplomatic fiction. And so, for 3 days, as the Ottoman Empire is literally collapsing in Europe, these diplomats sit in a hotel room in Switzerland and write a fantasy novel. This is the narrator's metacomentary. This is not a treaty. This is a creative writing exercise. It is a document designed specifically to allow both sides to go home and lie to their own people. This is the messy breakup in all its glory. This is the Treaty of Auchi, or First Treaty of Lausanne, signed on October 18, 1912, and it is bonkers. Here is the great lie in 3 parts. Part 1, the surrender that isn't a surrender, the problem. The Sultan can't give Libya to Italy. The solution, the Ottoman Empire will grant Libya autonomy. Yes, you heard me. The Sultan, in a fit of generosity, just sets Libya free. Go, my son. You are independent. We give up our political control. This is step 1 of the con. The other solution, the Ottoman Empire will also withdraw all of its military forces. This is the real reason the Ottomans are here. They need this piece of paper. This is the exit visa for Mustafa Kemal, for Enver Pasha. This is the recall the Atim button, so they can get them on a boat and send them to the real war against the Bulgarians. This is the entire point. The result, Italy, which is already occupying the entire coast, just stays. They don't take Libya from the Turks. No, the Turks leave, and the Italians just stay in the newly autonomous nation, which they already control. It's genius. It's pathetic. It's a lie you can drive a truck through. Part 2, the Caliph, the magic part, the problem. The Sultan is still the Caliph. He can't abandon his flock. The solution, the treaty specifically states that while the Sultan gives up political control, he retains religious authority. What does this mean? Nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It is a magic word. It's a diplomatic ghost. The official mechanism was the Sultan gets to appoint the chief Qadi, the main religious judge of Tripoli, and * the king of Italy must approve this appointment, and * the king of Italy must pay this judge's salary out of a special fund that the Ottomans will send him. It is insane. It's a fake job, paid with fake money, to uphold a fake authority, so the Sultan can pretend he's still in charge. Part 3, the hostages, the wink part, the problem. Italy is still holding the Dodecanese Islands roads. ETC, the solution, Italy promises to give them back. Yes, Article 2 of the treaty. Italy agrees to immediately withdraw all its troops from the Aegean Islands as soon as all the Ottoman troops are out of Libya. This is the final, beautiful lie. Italy knows that the Ottomans can't get all their troops out. They can't get the Libyan resistance to just stop fighting. So Italy gets to just sit on the islands forever, blaming the Turks for violating the treaty that they are also violating. Italy would end up temporarily holding the Dodecanese for 30 years. Until the end of World War II, the treaty is signed. The Italo Turkish War is over. The Ottoman diplomats literally sprint for the train station, clutching the recall. Our generals note, the Italian diplomats order more champagne. They won. The ink is dry. The champagne has been drunk by the Italians. The panicked, sweaty escape sprint to the train station has been achieved by the Ottomans. The Italo Turkish War. This glorious, stupid, year-long opera of incompetence is over, but the real performance, the messiest part of this messy breakup treaty, is just beginning. Now, both sides have to go home and sell this Rube Goldberg machine of lies Section 23 to their own people. This isn't a peace treaty. It's a press release with two completely different versions. Version 1, the Italian victory. Press conference back in Rome. Prime Minister Giulio and King Victor Emmanuel III step out onto the balcony of the Quirinal Palace. The square is packed. The nationalists, the socialists, the bankers, the army wives, everyone is desperate for this to be over. Giulio unrolls a scroll. He is beaming. People of Italy, Popolo d'Italia, we have done it. After a year of glorious Roman struggle, the Turk has surrendered. Massive, deafening cheers. Our brave Bersaglieri, our invincible Regia Marina, our angelic aviators of the sky have triumphed. More cheers as of this day. The fourth shore is ours. The crowd goes insane. The provinces of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica are, now and forever, under the full, total, and undivided sovereignty of the Kingdom of Italy. This is a lie. A big, fat, beautiful lie. What does Giulio not mention? He does not mention that the Sultan is still the religious authority. He does not mention that Italy has to pay the salary of a chief Qadi, who is appointed by the Sultan. He does not mention Article 2, the part where they explicitly promised to give the Dodecanese Islands back. Oh no, this is a victory parade. This is mission accomplished. Italy won. They got the land. They proved they were a great power. They finally have their place in the sun. The nationalists are ecstatic. The socialists are mostly quieted. The king is a conqueror. It worked. Version 2. The Ottoman we didn't lose. Press conference back in Constantinople. The vibe is different. The city is in a panic. The Bulgarian army is, at this very second, 50 miles away. The rumble of their artillery can almost be heard. The government is not celebrating. It is liquidating. The Grand Vizier, his face ashen, releases a proclamation. Brave subjects of the Sultan Caliph, we have achieved a noble peace. Confused, terrified silence from the public. Faced with unprecedented aggression in the Balkans, we have graciously and shrewdly neutralized the Italian threat. More silence. We have not surrendered. Our brave Libyan brothers, never. This part is shouted. We have, in our infinite wisdom, granted them autonomy. We have freed them from the burden of war. And most importantly, the Caliph's sacred authority remains. A few scattered claps. The Sultan is still their religious father. We have saved their souls. And furthermore, the Italians have promised to return the Aegean Islands. This is also a lie, a desperate, pathetic lie. What does the Sultan not mention? He does not mention that autonomy is a euphemism for we have abandoned them to a Christian king. He does not mention that his sacred religious authority is a fake, powerless job that the Italians are paying for. He does not mention that the only reason he signed this is because the Bulgarians are eating his entire army right now. This is the messiest breakup imaginable. It is the one where both people leave the lawyer's office and immediately tell their friends to completely different stories about who dumped who. Let's do the dialogue. Picture the two diplomats, literally on the steps of the Hotel Durci, buttoning their coats. Italian diplomat, smirking, lights a cigar. So, we are, agreed. Ottoman diplomat, frantically tying his shoes. Yes, agreed. You tell your king you own it. I tell my sultan. He doesn't. It is perfect. Italian diplomat and the islands. Ottoman diplomat stops, looks up, furious. You promised. Article 2. You promised you would leave. Italian diplomat blows a perfect smoke ring. But we will leave as soon as you pacify all of the locals in Libya. All of them, completely. You know the deal. Capis. The Ottoman diplomat's face falls. He knows. It's a lie. He knows the resistance will never stop, which means the Italians will never leave. He has been played, but he doesn't care. He can't care. Ottoman diplomat picks up his bag. I have to catch my train. The Bulgarians, they are at Lulburgas. Italian diplomat, Lul. Ibergaz. Sounds lovely. You have fun with that. And this, folks, is the medicamentary. The entire Treaty of Auchi was a permission slip. It was the Italians giving the Ottomans permission to abandon Libya, and it was the Ottomans giving the Italians permission to keep the Dodecanese. Everyone lied. Everyone won. Everyone was happy. Except for one group. The one group that wasn't in the hotel. The one group that nobody ever asked. The real losers. The Libyans out in the desert. At the Senussi stronghold of Kufra, the resistance fighters get the news. A run arrives. The Sultan. He signed. The what? He recalled the officers. What? The war is over. We are autonomous. We are Italian. Imagine the betrayal, the rage, their allies. The Turks, their brothers in Islam, the men they had bled and died with, had just left. Mustafa, Kemal, Enver Pasha. All the Ateem heroes were literally on a boat. They had abandoned them to the same people who were burning their farms, hanging their brothers, and putting their wives and children in concentration camps. Section 19. The Italo Turkish War was over. The Italo Libyan War had just begun. The Libyans did not stop. Why would they? Their enemy was still here. Their homes were still occupied. The peace was just a piece of paper signed by a traitor, the Sultan, and a monster, the King of Italy. The Libyans, under the banner of the Senussi, just kept fighting for another 20 years. The pacification that Italy thought was over would become 10 times bloodier. The war was over, but the mess was just getting started. The Treaty of Auchi is signed. The Italo-Turkish War is over. The Italian diplomats are popping champagne. The Ottoman diplomats are on a high-speed train to a different war, and the world is changed. This is the hangover of a victory. This is the morning after a year-long, insanely stupid party. And everyone has woken up in the wrong house with a splitting headache. And the entire neighborhood is on fire. Let's start with our winner, Italy. Vittoria, glory, they won. They have their place in the sun. The king is a conqueror. The nationalists are finally happy. Italy is a great power. Right? No, not at all. Italy won the single worst prize in the history of imperialism. They won a bankrupting, unconquerable, permanent quagmire. The Italo-Turkish War was over. But as we saw, the Italo-Libyan War had just begun. The Senussi resistance, furious at the Ottoman betrayal, didn't surrender. They didn't care about a piece of paper signed in a Swiss hotel. Their enemy was still here. So, what did Italy actually win? They won the beaches. They won the right to continue pouring billions of lira they didn't have into a genocidal and failing pacification program, Section 19, against a furious population. For the next 20 years, this war would bleed Italy white, all the way up to Mussolini, who would have to finish the job with even more brutality. Italy won Libya in the exact same way a man wins a wrestling match with a porcupine. The victory was the punishment. Now, let's look at the loser, the Ottoman Empire. They are screwed. They solved the Italy problem, but it was far too late. The Ateem Mustafa Kemal, Enver Pasha, they get their exit visa from Libya. They get on the boats. They race back to the capital just in time to watch the asterisk total, catastrophic, humiliating collapse of their entire European empire. The Balkan League Section 20 did not stop. While the Ottomans were arguing about the wording of the Auchi Treaty, the Bulgarian army destroyed the main Ottoman army. The Serbian army took Kosovo and Macedonia. The Greek army took Salonika. By the time Kemal and Enver get off the boat, it's over. In 6 weeks, the Ottomans lose 80% of their European territory. They lose Albania. They lose Macedonia. They lose Thrace. They lose everything. All that's left is a tiny little box of land around their capital. This is the real hangover. The Italo-Turkish War was the distraction that allowed the real war to kill them. This catastrophic loss leads directly to a coup in Constantinople in 1913. The Young Turks are so furious at this failure that the radical, militaristic wing led by our old friend, Enver Pasha, the hero of the Libyan resistance, seizes power in a bloody raid. And that is the government that will, in 1914, join World War I on the side of Germany. And finally, the rest of the world, the great powers, they watched. They scolded Italy. But mostly, they learned this stupid little war was the R&D lab for the Great War. This was the beta test. Every single military attaché from Berlin, Paris, and London who was in Tripoli was sending frantic, screaming cables home. And they all said one thing: aeroplanes are not toys. Section 9, the Italians are using them to see everything. Section 11, the Italians are dropping bombs from the sky. Section 10, they are legalizing IT. We need all the airplanes now. The air arms race of World War I starts in the Libyan desert. The Luftwaffe, the Royal Air Force, the Aeronautique Militaire, all are born from the notes taken while watching Giulio Gavotti chuck a grapefruit out of a kite. Let's do a final dialogue. The Great Powers Bar, 1913. Everyone is shaken. Britain, staring into his gin. Good God, the Balkans, what a mess. France, chain smoking. A mess. It is a catastrophe. The entire map is on fire. Germany, aggressively drinking a massive beer. He is taking notes. Yeah, a mess, but very interesting. Italy struts in. He's wearing a new, very expensive suit that's covered in sand and blood. He looks terrible, but he's smiling. Italy, buonasera, friends. So, I did it. I am an empire. I have Libya. It's wonderful. He coughs, and a cloud of dust comes out. So hot, but so much glory. Britain, France, and Germany just stare at him with pity and contempt. Britain, you idiot. You absolute, catastrophic, moron. Italy, his smile fades. What? But I won. France, you won. You won a dessert, and in doing so, you started the Balkan Wars. Germany, still taking notes. He proved the Turk was dead. Austria-Hungary in the corner, visibly hyperventilating. The Serbs are huge now. They are stronger. They are looking at me. This is all your fault. Italy, but my aeroplanes. They were so good. Germany snaps his notebook shut. Hey, Hungary, look in his eyes. Yeah. The aeroplanes, the bombing, that was very interesting. Thank you for the demonstration. And that, folks, is the medicomentary. That is the final terrible hangover of the Italo Turkish War. It was never, ever a little colonial war. It was the match that lit the Balkan fuse. The Balkan Wars created the Super Serbia that Austria-Hungary became terrified of. And that terror would lead directly to Sarajevo. And at the same time, it was the dress rehearsal for every piece of technology that would make the Great War great. Italy stole Libya. And in doing so, they broke the world. And that is how Italy stole Libya from the Ottomans. It was a war that began with colonial FOMO, was defined by big guns. No plan, accidentally invented the entire future of warfare just to get out of a sandbox, and was won by default because an entirely different scarier war showed up and did its homework for it. Look, you absolutely should not use this podcast as study material for your history final. You will fail, but you have to admit, it's way more fun than reading a textbook. This whole thing was a mess. A pathetic, arrogant, chaotic, and profoundly important mess. It was the pre-game party for World War I. Let us know in the comments what other absurd, messy, I can't believe that historical moment you want us to simplify next.